Chapter 1757 Demanding the Payment of a Debt. It was not easy for even great emperors to find Emperor Bai, let alone Jian Wushuang. Moreover, even if he were to find Emperor Bai due to his nature-defying luck, would Emperor Bai give him the method for the 7th step of an inverse cultivator for free? After all, as soon as Jian Wushuang obtained the method for the 7th step of an inverse cultivator, there was a high chance of him becoming an almighty level inverse cultivator in the future. Moreover, there was also hope for him to achieve a level similar to that of Emperor Bai. If Emperor Bai had some selfish motives, he would definitely not give the method to Jian Wushuang and allow Jian Wushuang to pose a threat to his position. Looks like I can only rely on opportunities in the future to obtain the training method of the 7th step of the inverse cultivator, Jian Wushuang muttered. However, due to real god Wu Bai's warning from before, Jian Wushuang had long prepared himself for such results. Alright, Hall Master Yuan, there's another matter which concerns the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom, Jian Wushuang said abruptly. The monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom? How is the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom related to you? Hall Master Yuan said with surprise. It's like this. When real god Wu Bei gave the training method of the 6th step of an inverse cultivator to me back then, I promised him that I would kill the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom on his behalf if I were to possess the abilities to do so. Jian Wushuang said, since I have made a promise, unless I have no abilities or no way to do so, I will not go back on my words. Jian Wushuang would not make promises easily. However, he held promises in high regard. Back then in Wu Bai's cave, since he had promised real god Wu Bei, he would always hold it firmly in his mind. Previously, he had not had enough abilities. However, things had changed. I see. Hall Master Yuan understood and said, the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom is a ruler of many holy kingdoms and his reputation is not small within the eternal chaotic world. Moreover, he is a member of the Sanctuary Alliance. As for his abilities, he is a top Sir God expert. With your current abilities, if it were 1-to-1, it would be possible for you to kill him. However, the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom's background is not simple. Background? Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. Regarding the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom's abilities, he already knew about it previously. However, he did not know about the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom's background. Hence, he was asking Hall Master Yuan to get to know some background of the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom. Jian Wushuang, just now, I told you that within the Sanctuary Alliance, apart from the masters of the 10 sanctuaries, there are 3 other great emperors. Putting Emperor Bai aside, among the 2 remaining great emperors, there is a great Emperor Zisu. Among the 13 great emperors, Great Emperor Z you can be considered one of the top 5. Moreover, the relationship between the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom and Great Emperor Zisu is not normal. It is said that when Great Emperor Zisu was still a real god, he owed the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom a favor. After that, he became a great emperor and the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom has been serving under him ever since. If you wish to kill the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom, you have to get past the level of Great Emperor Zisu, Hall Master Yuan said. Upon hearing that, Jian Wushuang was stunned. Previously, he had known that the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom had a great background. However, he did not expect his background to actually be so deep-rooted. With such friendship with a great emperor and that Great Emperor Zisu owed him a favor, if he were to come across any danger, Great Emperor Zisu would definitely come to rescue him personally. Moreover, if he were to avenge real god Wu Bei by killing the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom, there would be a high chance of Great Emperor Zisu coming personally to kill him. Seems like I will be unable to take revenge for real god Wu Bei for another short period of time. Jian Wushuang shook his head. He had promised to help real god Wu Bei take revenge. Moreover, he would only do so when he had the abilities and he had to also be in a situation where he was sure that he could stay alive. However, at that moment, it was obvious that his abilities were not enough. At the very least, I must wait until I have enough things to capitalize on that I can face Great Emperor Zisu. Then, I will be able to take action against the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom for real, Jian Wushuang murmured. Jian Wushuang, it is impossible for you to kill the monarch of the Demon Heart Kingdom now, and I believe that you would not be so stupid. Hall Master glanced at Jian Wushuang and continued speaking. Since your abilities have fully recovered, what do you plan to do next? Next. Jian Wushuang could not help but raise the corners of his mouth. I want to demand the payment of a debt. Demand the payment of a debt? Hall Master Yuan was stunned. The Soaring Heaven King Palace? That's right. Jian Wushuang nodded his head earnestly. To begin with, there is a huge grudge between me and the Soaring Heaven King Palace that is unresolved. Moreover, outside the Buddhist demon sea back then, they almost killed me when I was seriously injured, and I remember this debt extremely clearly. Hence, I must absolutely think of a way to get them to repay me. It's easy to say that. However, the abilities of the Soaring Heaven King Palace are not normal. Do you have the confidence to deal with them? Hall Master Yuan said with concern. Don't worry. Since I dare to demand the payment of a debt, I naturally have absolute confidence. Jian Wushuang laughed. Hall Master Yuan, you definitely have a better understanding of the Soaring Heaven King Palace than me. Please tell me what kind of experts the Soaring Heaven King Palace have, as well as some of the trump cards that they possess. With this, I will be more prepared. Jian Wushuang knew about some experts of the Soaring Heaven King Palace. However, he did not know all of them. No problem. Hall Master Yuan said immediately. According to the information that the lineage of Star has collected, there are a total of 11 Almighties in the Soaring Heaven King Palace. Among the Almighties, 9 of them are Sir Gods while the remaining 2 are Emperor Gods. Upon hearing that, Jian Wushuang's eyes could not help but shrink. The Soaring Heaven King Palace was a top powerhouse of the eternal chaotic world as well, and it was no wonder that their ways of doing things had always been so unreasonable. It seemed that they were unreasonable due to their absolute abilities. An Almighty was strong enough to be called someone with great authority in the eternal chaotic world. However, the Soaring Heaven King Palace actually had a total of 11 of them. It should be known that a similar top powerhouse like the lineage of Star only contained 3 Almighties. By including Jian Wushuang, who possessed the fighting capabilities of an Almighty, there were only 4 of them. Compared to the Soaring Heaven King Palace, they were indeed lacking a lot in terms of numbers. If not for the Star Palace Master with the Soaring Heaven King Palace's abilities, they would probably be able to suppress the lineage of Star completely. For the 9 Sir Gods of the Soaring Heaven King Palace, there are some with strong abilities as well as some with weak abilities. In particular, there are 3 of them who stand at the top of the Sir Gods. As for the 2 Emperor Gods, they are Emperor God Tianling and Emperor God Tianshao. These 2 Emperor Gods are the oldest existences in the Soaring Heaven King Palace. At the same time, they are also the 2 founders of the Soaring Heaven King Palace. Among the 2 of them, Emperor God Tianling is the stronger one. Emperor God Tianling has been famous for a long time, and he became famous a lot sooner than our palace master. Moreover, his abilities long ago achieved the peak of an Emperor God, and he is slightly stronger than the palace master. In the eternal chaotic world, he is also a well-known super expert, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang frowned. The current him could compete with Emperor God experts head-on. And if he were to encounter Emperor Gods at a similar level to Emperor God Xuegu, he would not be fearful at all. However, if he were to encounter a top Emperor God, he would not have absolute confidence. Fortunately, Hall Master Yuan said again, Emperor God Tianling is proud and ambitious. Ever since he achieved the peak of being an Emperor God, he has been trying every means to go for Great Emperor. Moreover, it would definitely be impossible to make a breakthrough to Great Emperor if he were to rely on his own training. Therefore, there is a need for him to look for opportunities. As such, for many years, Emperor God Tianling has been traveling in the second lair, and he will only return once every hundreds of thousands of years. Chapter 1758. Treasure Auction. Oh. Jian Wushuang was interested. If Emperor God Tianshao were to be wandering in the second lair, he had no scruples. How about Emperor God Tianshao? Jian Wushuang asked. Emperor God Tianshao has been in a commanding position in Soaring Heaven King Palace all this while. He hardly wanders in the lairs or dangerous places, while his power is far weaker than Emperor God Tianling's. Emperor God Tianling is on the top among emperor gods while Emperor God Tianshao is merely intermediate among emperor gods. Intermediate? How about if he is compared to Emperor God Shuigu? Jian Wushuang asked. He should be weaker compared to Emperor God Shuigu. However, Emperor God Tianshao has 2 chaotic divine treasures. In particular, there is 1 defense armor. Hence, you can't belittle him either, Hall Master Yuan said. 2 chaotic divine treasure? One of it is even a defense armor? Jian Wushuang was surprised and astonished at the abundant treasure that Emperor God Tianshao had. One should know that Emperor God Shuigu only had 1 chaotic divine treasure, which was the Crimson Trident. Besides the higher-ups, Soaring Heaven King Palace is a top force that is powerful in eternal chaotic world after all. You shouldn't belittle the trump cards that they hold. If you fight with them head-on, you should be cautious, Hall Master Yuan exhorted. I understand, Jian Wushuang smiled faintly as he already made up his mind. Although Emperor God Tianshao had 2 chaotic divine treasure, he alone couldn't make Jian Wushuang worried. As for the other Sir Gods, he couldn't be bothered. He needed to be concerned about the trump cards that Soaring Heaven King Palace had. Jian Wushuang, I have to remind you that Soaring Heaven King Palace is much stronger than Lineage of Star. Although, due to the Master of Star Palace, Soaring Heaven King Palace didn't have the guts to declare war against Lineage of Star. If we of Lineage of Star were to take the initiative to taunt them and corner them, it would be a different story. So, if you want to take revenge on Soaring Heaven King Palace, you can only do it alone. We of Lineage of Star can't help you on the surface. Of course, when it reaches a crucial moment, such as your life being threatened, I will tell the Master of Star Palace to get involved personally, Hall Master Yuan sounded solemn. You have boundless prospects and you are significant to Lineage of Star. If you were to be in danger, we of Lineage of Star would definitely go all out to protect you, even if it means war against Soaring Heaven King Palace. I understand, Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. Ever since Jian Wushuang had fought with Soaring Heaven King Palace, Lineage of Star had never once had a conflict with Soaring Heaven King Palace in public. It had only been Jian Wushuang fighting with Soaring Heaven King Palace alone. It wasn't because Lineage of Star wasn't willing to assist Jian Wushuang but because Lineage of Star was at a difficult position. If it wasn't necessary, Lineage of Star wasn't willing to get involved. The moment they got involved, they would definitely break apart with Soaring Heaven King Palace. By then, it would drag up too many affairs. After he got to know more about Soaring Heaven King Palace, Jian Wushuang immediately departed. One of the 10 sanctuaries, Colored Glaze Sanctuary. Colored Glaze Sanctuary was considered a more spacious sanctuary in the 10 sanctuaries. There was a total of 8 huge continents. Among the 8 continents, Soaring Heaven King Palace took up 2 of them. The 2 continents were where the lair of Soaring Heaven King Palace was located, also the deep-rooted Soaring Heaven land. The other one was Sea Continent. The original overlord of Sea Continent wasn't Soaring Heaven King Palace but a strong force that could compare favorably to Lineage of Star. However, the force experienced an accident whereby their strongest emperor god passed away as he wandered in the 3rd lair. Without their emperor god, the force naturally couldn't remain as the overlord of Sea Continent. Immediately there was a war. As the force was destroyed, Soaring Heaven King Palace on Soaring Heaven Land got involved arrogantly and defeated the other forces in Sea Continent. Since then, Soaring Heaven King Palace had become the overlord of Sea Continent. Soaring Heaven King Palace had even left a strong power in Sea Continent as a deterrent to all enemies. The power was concentrated in the middle of Sea Continent where Soaring Heaven Mansion was located. As Jian Wushuang came to take revenge, he definitely had to come to the territory that Soaring Heaven King Palace had conquered. Between Soaring Heaven Land and Sea Continent, Jian Wushuang opted for the latter. Sea Continent, a huge bustling city that was floating in the air. The city's name was Sea City. On Sea Continent, it could be named as Sea City. Its importance could be well imagined. In the entire Sea Continent, only Soaring Heaven Mansion could be compared to the flourishing city favorably. In an exquisite restaurant in Sea City, Jian Wushuang sat in his crimson robe and carried his sword on his back as he read the set of information that he had just received. Vientiane Tower Treasure Auction? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Interesting. Vientiane Tower was absolutely the #1 chamber of commerce in eternal chaotic world. They possessed boundless treasures and rare books. Vientiane Tower on every continent in 10 cultivation sanctuaries would throw a treasure auction every once in a while. The treasure auction was huge. Many forces and sects on the continent, including many solo experts, would participate. Jian Wushuang had just happened to make it in time for Vientiane Tower treasure auction in Sea Continent. The treasure auction was going to take place in Vientiane Tower in Sea Continent 10 days later. I want to take revenge and I have to strike at the experts of Soaring Heaven King Palace. However, the experts are scattered all around Sea Continent. It won't be easy to find them. However, Vientiane Tower treasure auction is such a major event. Even Soaring Heaven King Palace will definitely send influential experts to participate. This happens to provide me a great chance. As for how I want to do this, Jian Wushuang was in deep thought, but there was suddenly a commotion outside the restaurant. Jian Wushuang spread his soul power and he saw a few figures flying over from the void afar. The few of them had ferocious auras that were already at the level of chaotic real god. The one who was leading was a top chaotic real god. The commotion outside the restaurant was stirred by their arrival. At the same time, Jian Wushuang found out the background of the few figures via eavesdropping the conversations around him. Thunder Rolls Palace, a strong force in Sea Continent, but they don't have any almighty in commanding position. The leading one among them is the top chaotic real god, the master of Thunder Rolls Palace. Jian Wushuang tapped the table with his finger as the corners of his lips lifted into a smile. When he saw the master of Thunder Rolls Palace, he already had a plan in his mind. Then, Jian Wushuang immediately moved and got close to the few chaotic real gods from Thunder Rolls Palace. Chapter 1759 Fearlessness. 10 days later, the Vientiane Tower's treasure auction began as scheduled. Just like the past, the treasure auction this time around had attracted many powerful, big powerhouses from the Sea Continent. Moreover, as the overlord of the Sea Continent, the Soaring Heaven King Palace had also sent experts over. Furthermore, the experts that it had sent over did not have low positions. Real God Shui Kong, I did not expect you to actually come to the treasure auction personally this time around. Brother Shui Kong, long time no see. I trust that you have been well since we parted? Greetings to Real God Shui Kong. At the sight of the Vientiane Tower's treasure auction, the person who was flattered and escorted by everyone was a gray-robed old man. The gray-robed old man was Real God Shui Kong from the Soaring Heaven King Palace. He was not just an elder who had a lot of power in the Soaring Heaven King Palace. Instead, his abilities were shocking as well, and it was rumored that he could compete with experts in the Real God ranking list. Among the experts from the Soaring Heaven King Palace who came to participate in the treasure auction this time around, he was their leader. While being flattered by everyone, Real God Shui Kong and some experts from the Soaring Heaven King Palace went to their independent rooms. When they sat inside their independent rooms, they could see everything that was occurring outside clearly. At the same time, they could also see the treasure exhibition stage. The auction treasures in the treasure auction of the Vientiane Tower have always been outstanding. However, I wonder what treasures will be auctioned off this time around. It's a pity that the Vientiane Tower's treasure auction has always had tight security. Even the Soaring Heaven King Palace has no prior knowledge on the treasures. Two real gods of the Soaring Heaven King Palace were having a random conversation. However, at that time, Real God Shui Kong snorted coldly, "No matter what treasures are being auctioned off by the Vientiane Tower, as long as it is something that catches the Soaring Heaven King Palace's eyes, it shall be ours." Upon hearing that, the other experts of the Soaring Heaven King Palace around him laughed. Indeed, with the Soaring Heaven King Palace's power and high-handedness, if a treasure were to catch their eyes during the treasure action, they would definitely be able to obtain it. In no time, the treasure auction began and the first treasure was up for bidding. The first treasure was a real god-level chaos divine weapon. Although it was armor used for defense, it did not catch the attention of the Soaring Heaven King Palace at all. On the contrary, experts from other powerhouses fought for the treasure for quite a period of time. Time passed by and many treasures went up for bidding. At the start, The Soaring Heaven King Palace was silent. Only the first 20 treasures had come out. Humongous White Sun Elixir. It's something that is quite rare, Real God Shui Kong muttered to himself, and he spoke loudly, 1,000 doctrine gems. Real God Shui Kong's voice spread across the area from the independent room that he was in, and the whole treasure action became quiet at once. The humongous White Sun Elixir was valuable, and it would be of some help to top chaotic real gods. For its price, not to mention 1,000 doctrine gems, if one were to come across someone who really needed it, even 2,000 doctrine gems would not be considered a lot. If it were someone normal who gave the price of 1,000 doctrine gems, someone else would definitely compete with him. However, at that time, the Soaring Heaven King Palace was the one who gave the price. In the treasure auction, many experts from each and every powerhouse or sect could not help but look at the independent room that Real God Shui Kong was in. However, at that moment, for the second treasure that had caught the attention of the Soaring Heaven King Palace, the Thunder Rolls Palace still wanted to compete for it? Would it be so much of a confidence for the Thunder Rolls Palace to happen to need both treasures that had caught the attention of the Soaring Heaven King Palace? 2,800 doctrine gems. Real God Shui Kong spoke again. However, that time around, his voice was a bit deep and low. 3,000 doctrine gems. A deep voice could be heard again from the independent room of the Thunder Rolls Palace. Real God Shui Kong's eyes finally turned ice cold. Thunder Rolls Palace, interesting. Real God Shui Kong murmured, and he stopped competing. As for the other experts of the Soaring Heaven King Palace around him, their expressions were a bit cold as well. The treasure auction continued. The treasure auction was indeed held by the Vientiane Tower. The prices of all the treasures that they had taken out were extremely shocking, and quite a number of treasures had caught the attention of the Soaring Heaven King Palace. Moreover, every time Real God Shui Kong of the Soaring Heaven King Palace gave a price, the Thunder Rolls Palace would compete with him by giving another price. Moreover, no matter how high the price that Real God Shui Kong gave was, the Thunder Rolls Palace would always give a price that was higher than his. The treasure auction was halfway done. During this period of time, there was a total of 12 treasures that had caught the eyes of the Soaring Heaven King Palace, and they had also bid for them. However, for these 12 treasures, none of them fell into the hands of the Soaring Heaven King Palace in the end. Instead, all of them were obtained by the Thunder Rolls Palace. The Thunder Rolls Palace had only obtained those 12 treasures. In other words, the Thunder Rolls Palace would only bid for treasures that had caught the eyes of the Soaring Heaven King Palace. As for treasures that had caught the eyes of other powerhouses or sects, the Thunder Rolls Palace would not be concerned with them. What were they doing? In the treasure auction, the experts from all the powerhouses and sects were all extremely stunned. Some of them even cried out in alarm, "The Thunder Rolls Palace is really fearless." Chapter 1760 Old Monster Qi Xing. There were so many forces and sects that participated in the auction, but Thunder Rolls Palace didn't bother with them. But whenever Soaring Heaven King Palace shouted a bid, they immediately joined and competed in bidding. They were obviously asking for trouble with Soaring Heaven King Palace. Thunder Rolls Palace, are they crazy? Crazy, they must be crazy. Thunder Rolls Palace must have increased in power tremendously, and they are getting carried away. Thanks. I think Thunder Rolls Palace is courting death. They openly provoked Soaring Heaven King Palace. If I were to be Real God Shui Kong, I would immediately destroy Thunder Rolls Palace right when the auction ends. There were people whispering to one another. The experts from various forces and sect were waiting to watch a show. Of course, they were also people whose eyes were dilated in curiosity. They faintly noticed that it wasn't as simple as it looked. The few experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace gathered, and they didn't look too good. Only the leader among them, Real God Shui Kong, flashed a bloodthirsty smile. It seems like we of Soaring Heaven King Palace has not launched an attack for many years, and the outside world already forget how scary Soaring Heaven King Palace is. Even a nonentity has the guts to provoke us in public. Humph, Thunder Rolls Palace doesn't even have any experts on Real God ranking list, let alone an almighty. Such a sect, Soaring Heaven King Palace can destroy them in an instant. Wait till the auction ends, we shall immediately take action. First, Kill all the people from Thunder Roll's palace who came to join the auction, one of the chaotic real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace said. No, it's not as simple as you think it is. Real god Shui Kong smiled maliciously. What does Thunder Roll's palace have that gave them the courage to provoke Soaring Heaven King Palace? Their palace master isn't that stupid. If he dares to do so, he definitely has a backer. There are only a few of us, it's best that we don't act recklessly. How about this? Master Qi Xing happens to be nearby. Let me send him a message for him to make a trip here personally. With Master Qi Xing, no matter who Thunder Roll's palace's backer is, he will be able to settle. The few experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace nodded heavily at his suggestion. They were confident in Master Qi Xing. Then, in the independent room that all experts were paying attention to, the few real gods from Thunder Roll's palace stood. Their faces were as pale as sheets and they were shivering in fear. Mister, the one that we offended is Soaring Heaven King Palace, the master of Thunder Roll's palace muttered. In front of the master of Thunder Roll's palace, there was a young man in a crimson robe carrying a long sword on his back. The person was naturally Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was enjoying his cup of tea leisurely. He smiled when he heard what the master of Thunder Roll's palace had said. But, Master of Thunder Roll's palace seems to be afraid? Of course I am, the master of Thunder Roll's palace said. Soaring Heaven Jing Palace is one of the biggest forces in eternal chaotic world. They have a total of over 10 almighties. Anyone sent could destroy Thunder Roll's palace completely. On Sea Continent, Soaring Heaven King Place is king. Thunder Roll's palace have always been respectful. The master of Thunder Roll's palace looked bitter. Soaring Heaven King Palace was a big figure to Thunder Roll's palace. If it wasn't because Jian Wushuang had forced him to, he wouldn't have had the guts to provoke the former. But then he had no choice. The few of their lives were in Jian Wushuang's hands. They couldn't even struggle. They could only obey what Jian Wushuang wanted them to do. Don't worry. Soaring Heaven King Palace isn't as scary as you imagined. Plus, if the experts of Soaring Heaven King Palace were to barge in here, I would take care of them. As for you, just telling them you were forced by me will do. At most, apologize to them. There won't be anything major, Jian Wushuang said. The master of Thunder Roll's palace looked even more troubled. One should know that Soaring Heaven King Palace had always been barbaric. Thunder Roll's palace had offended them so badly, even if there was a reason, it wouldn't be something that could be solved with an apology. Don't worry, follow my instructions. Whatever treasures Soaring Heaven King Palace wants, get it for me. Jian Wushuang continued to enjoy his tea. The master of Thunder Roll's palace gulped. Although he wasn't willing to, he could only follow Jian Wushuang's instructions. However, Soaring Heaven King Palace seemed to take the hint. The rest of the treasure, they never bid anymore. Hence, the master of Thunder Roll's palace naturally couldn't fight for it. Very soon, the biggest treasure auction on Sea Continent ended. The experts from various forces and sects walked out from Vientiane Tower. The moment they walked out from Vientiane Tower, they were shocked at the sight in the void before them. In the void outside of Vientiane Tower, there were over 10 figures floating. The figures had strong auras. The weakest was an eternal real god and most of them were chaotic real gods. Real god Shui Kong was in the crowd too, but he wasn't the leader of the crowd. The leader was an elderly with white eyebrows who was standing at the far front with a snakehead staff. He was standing there in silence while he squinted his eyes. The elderly with white eyebrows didn't give out any aura. He was the least eye-catching one among the figures. However, that person was the reason the experts at the scene looked terrified. It's old monster Qi Xing. Sir God Qi Xing from Soaring Heaven King Palace. He's an almighty. An almighty came personally. Thunder Roll's palace is doomed. As expected, Soaring Heaven King Palace is not one who could be provoked as he wishes. An almighty came personally and he could easily destroy Thunder Roll's palace. Outside of Vientiane Tower, countless experts stopped. They didn't leave and the scene became noisy. Whoever participated in that treasure auction knew that Thunder Roll's palace had taken the initiative to provoke Soaring Heaven King Palace. According to Soaring Heaven King Palace's manner of handling things, how could they tolerate that? At the treasure auction earlier, Soaring Heaven King Place didn't do anything as they were concerned about Vientiane Tower's reputation. But then, judging by the looks of it, the moment the experts of Thunder Rolls Palace exit, they would immediately be killed by Soaring Heaven King Palace. Under the anticipation and attention of all experts, the few real gods from Thunder Rolls Palace walked out of Vientiane Tower slowly. The person leading them was the master of Thunder Rolls Palace, who looked bitter. The moment they walked out from Vientiane Tower, the master of Thunder Rolls Palace felt dry in his throat when he saw over 10 figures and Sir God Qi Xing at the forefront before him. He suppressed his fear and said, "Thunder Rolls Palace, Lei Tao, greet Sir God Qi Xing and everyone from Soaring Heaven King Palace." Lei Tao, in the eyes of your Thunder Rolls Palace, is there Soaring Heaven King Palace? Real God Shui Kong looked down at him from above. The master of Thunder Rolls Palace wanted to say something. Sir God Qi Xing's eyes suddenly opened wide and there was a flash of light. Chapter 1761 Killed with a flip of his palm. Get the person behind you to come out. Your Thunder Rolls Palace does not have the resolve and guts to provoke the Soaring Heaven King Palace. A cold voice could be heard from Sir God Qi Xing. Although his voice seemed to be soft, it echoed within the minds of everyone present. Moreover, it created waves in their minds and they almost drowned in it. What a frightening move! Is this a Sir God? The people present cried out in alarm. After Sir God Qi Xing's voice was heard, a crimson-robed figure walked out from the Vientiane Tower normally. He was carrying a sword. When he appeared, he naturally attracted the attention of everyone present. Even Sir God Qi Xing could not help but look at him. A real god? A mere real god can actually exert such a huge amount of pressure on me? Sir God Qi Xing's eyes shrank fiercely. After that, he looked at Jian Wushuang's looks and attire carefully. Crimson robe, carrying a sword and so young. You are Jian Wushuang. A voice which contained an infinite amount of coldness could be heard from Sir God Qi Xing, and this caused the sight to be in a huge uproar. Jian Wushuang. He is Jian Wushuang. The number 1 on the real god ranking list. The Jian Wushuang who had once competed against an almighty head-on and even caused that almighty to suffer huge losses. So it's him. The scene was in a tumult. The weak could use the names of the strong to protect themselves. At that time, Jian Wushuang had a great reputation in the eternal chaotic world. Although he was only a real god, none of the almighties dared to underestimate him. No wonder the unimpressive Thunder Rolls Palace dares to take the initiative to provoke the Soaring Heaven King Palace. It's because of you supporting them from the back, Sir God Qi Xing snorted coldly. His eyes then glowed with lightning and he looked at the Thunder Rolls Palace master. Thunder Rolls Palace, how fortunate you are. Sir God Qi Xing, the Thunder Rolls Palace master said fearfully, for the matter this time around, the Thunder Rolls Palace was threatened by Jian Wushuang and we had no choice but to do this. If we have offended you, Lei Tao, ask for the forgiveness of Mr. Sir God, as well as all of you here who are from the Soaring Heaven King Palace. In addition, I will add on another 10,000 doctrine gems as a form of apology. The Thunder Rolls Palace master was extremely sincere and respectful. However, such an attitude from him was expected of by everyone else. For this matter which concerns the Thunder Rolls Palace, I will settle it with you after this. Sir God Qi Xing's voice was icy cold and he looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, you actually dared to come to the sea continent alone and also take the initiative to provoke the Soaring Heaven King Palace. You are really very courageous and I wonder, who lent you their courage? Was it the lineage of Star? However, it's a pity. In the sea continent, even if the Soaring Heaven King Palace were to kill you, the lineage of Star would probably not dare to say anything. I have come here by myself. In addition, the grudge between me and the Soaring Heaven King Palace is my own matter, and it is unrelated to the lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang laughed indifferently. As for my motive this time around, I naturally want to give bad luck to the Soaring Heaven King Palace, and you shall be the first expert of the Soaring Heaven King Palace who I kill on my trip this time around. You are merely bragging. Don't think that just because you wounded Sir God Qianlong seriously back then, you can really be unafraid of almighties. The abilities of the almighties are not as simple as you think, and today, I shall let you have a taste of it. Sir God Qi Shing's eyes were ice cold. After his words left his mouth, a frightening aura which belonged to Almighty's spread across the area and placed a huge pressure on the whole place. Countless experts, which was inclusive of many real gods present, almost suffocated under the pressure of the aura. While these people were extremely shocked, they looked at Jian Wushuang with sympathy. Jian Wushuang had a great reputation. However, his reputation was still stopped at the point where he injured Sir God Qianlong seriously. At that time, many experts in the eternal chaotic world only knew about that accomplishment of him. As for later on when he killed His Highness Mu Hong at the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning and when he competed with Sir God Lu Yin in the Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu head-on, those pieces of news did not spread. As for the battle in the Buddhist Demon Sea, no one had seen it. Naturally, no one knew what Jian Wushuang's current abilities were, and they thought that at that time, Jian Wushuang could at most compete against Sir God Qianlong. As for Sir God Qi Shing at the scene, although he had not reached the level of a top Sir God, he was still slightly stronger than Sir God Qianlong. If he were to take action personally, would there be a possibility of Jian Wushuang surviving? Little kid die. Sir God Qi Shing attacked right away. He did not move at all. Instead, only the walking stick with a snake's head that he was holding on to hit the ground, and at once, a great amount of divine power emerged. At the same time, a vast amount of dark power appeared as well. Hazy black mist burst forth and covered the universe. Within the black mist, swish, all of a sudden, a gigantic black python that was 10,000 feet long appeared with a frightening amount of power. The black python pierced the void and caused the surrounding space and time to freeze completely. Moreover, in the areas that it passed through, the space cracked open. Seeing that the black python was heading over, many cultivators, including the real gods present, all revealed a terrified expression. These are the abilities of an almighty? It's too strong. There is almost no way to stop this power. This is the end. No matter what, Jian Wushuang is only a real god. Even if he is the #1 in the real god ranking list, he will definitely be unable to block this attack. Quite a number of people had already cried out in alarm. However, when Jian Wushuang saw the black python which was heading over, disdain flashed in his eyes. Sir God Qi Shing's abilities are only as such? Too weak. Such a level of attack has no right to even make me draw my sword. It just so happens that I have comprehended a palm skill from the shocking palm that the one-star man has left me. Today, I can try using it to test its power. Jian Wushuang murmured. When the 10,000-foot-long black python came to the void in front of him, some divine power emerged from the palm of his right hand and it was filled with an infinite amount of reincarnation power. Boom! He attacked with his palm and the universe went silent. What the reincarnation palm contained seemed to be the perfect reincarnation doctrine. Rumble! A frightening amount of power burst forth, and the black python, which was originally filled with a great amount of power and was wreaking havoc, madly dissipated with a shocking speed the moment it clashed with the palm print of the reincarnation palm. As a result of the attack, the giant black python burst open completely and an enormous amount of divine power spread in all directions. As for the reincarnation palm, its power did not decrease at all and it continued to head toward Sir God Qi Shing. What? Sir God Qi Shing opened his eyes wide. Even though he was looking at the giant palm print which was heading toward him, he could not pluck up any power to resist at all. The giant palm print covered him completely. Without even giving a horrible shriek, Sir God Qi Shing's body was completely smashed into blood mist and only his walking stick as well as his Qian Kun ring remained. As for everything else, they had been turned into nothingness. Sir God Qi Shing, an almighty of the soaring Heaven King Palace. With the flip of a palm, he was killed. Chapter 1762 Big Trouble. Silence. In the void outside of Vientiane Tower, the entire sea city was in a dead silence. Astonished. Everyone was lost for words in amazement. Sir God Qi Shing had revealed shocking power earlier and every cultivator at the scene was amazed. However, in an instant, Sir God Qi Shing had been killed by Jian Wushuang with one palm. It was too much of a contrast and everyone had yet to respond. Sir God Qi Xen was an almighty and he was so powerful. To kill him with one palm, just how much more powerful was Jian Wushuang? How is it possible? The people from Soaring Heaven King Palace were dumbfounded and they stood there in shock. Real God Xue Kong was staring with his eyes wide. Can't even withstand one hit, Jian Wushuang pouted. Then he looked at real God Xue Kong and the others. Sir God Qi Exen died and it's your turn next. Jian Wushuang said, and there were two resplendent golden lights that soared up from both of his sides. The two golden lights were like two golden suns. They gave out a magical power. The moment they appeared, they burst out at a terrifying speed. The two Hongjun golden swords shuttled to and from the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace under the control of Jian Wushuang. Pissed, 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 pissed. The figures were pierced instantly with no mercy. The real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace looked terrified. Run! Hurry up and run! Jian Wushuang killed an almighty with one palm. The real gods didn't even think about counterattacking and started fleeing. However, no matter how fast they ran, they were much slower than the Hongyun golden sword. The difference was too vast. The two golden lights shuttled back and forth the void. They caught up with the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace who were fleeing and killed them with ease. In a short time, probably less than one breath time, the real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace who were running away were all killed besides real God Xue Kong. But real God Xue Kong was alive because Jian Wushuang had intentionally let him stay alive. Do you know why I kept you alive? Jian Wushuang put away the Hongjun golden swords and walked to real God Xue Kong as though he was taking a leisurely stroll in the garden. Demon, demon. Real God Xue Kong looked at Jian Wushuang with a horrified expression. Even since he had cultivated, it was his first time being so terrified. The person before him was too strong. He was so strong that it made him feel hopeless. Jian Wushuang stopped at about 10 meters away from real God Xue Kong. He smirked. I kept you alive because I hope you can bring a message back to Soaring Heaven King Palace. Tell them that I remember very clearly the besiegement in the 8th lair previously and the attack at the border of Buddhist Demon Sea where I was badly injured. Now, it's time for me to settle our accounts. Sir God Qi Xing is only the beginning. Next, the massacre will continue. Tell them to clean their necks and be prepared to get slaughtered. Jian Wushuang spoke with a cold voice and he didn't lower his volume. Not only did real God Xue Kong hear him, the surrounding cultivators also heard him clearly too. They gasped in surprise. Go back, Jian Wushuang waved at real God Xue Kong. Real God Xue Kong gulped, suppressed the fear in him, and turned around stiffly to leave. In a short while, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Jian Wushuang smirked coldly at the sight. Then, his figure turned illusionary and vanished into thin air. Until Jian Wushuang left, Sea City that was in dead silence for a short while let out an uproar again. The countless cultivators in the entire Sea City were bubbling with excitement. One should know that they had witnessed an almighty's death with their own eyes and he had been killed with just one palm. It was difficult for them to even see an almighty normally, let alone watch one being killed. Besides, from their viewpoint, they reckoned that the battle between Jian Wushuang and Soaring Heaven King Palace was even more vigorous than their previous fight in the 8th lair. There's going to be big trouble. Everyone understood that. Forget about how the battle between Jian Wushuang and Soaring Heaven King Palace would develop. Jian Wushuang, a real god, he had killed Sir God Qi Xing, an almighty, with just one palm. The news itself could stir up a great commotion in the entire eternal chaotic world. The news naturally spread like wildfire. The entire eternal chaotic world was shocked at the news. It was bedlam in Thunderbolt Island. Countless experts were surprised and they found it unbelievable. It was an almighty. Plus, Sir God Qi Xing wasn't weak among Sir Gods. In the end, Jian Wushuang had killed him with one palm. Just how powerful was Jian Wushuang? At the peak of Sir God? Close to Emperor God? Or he could already compare favorably with Emperor God. He was only a real god after all. As they were in astonishment, experts from all forces were anticipating what was going to happen next. Jian Wushuang had barged into Sea Continent alone and killed Sir God Qi Xing and many real gods in front of everyone. Not only had he embarrassed Soaring Heaven King Heaven, But he had also come into their territory. Soaring Heaven King Palace would definitely respond. Plus, Jian Wushuang had also said that Sir God Qi Xing was only the beginning. Then, there would be an even more ferocious massacre. There might even be other almighties who would die. Everyone was looking forward to it. But no one knew that just as the news spread, the main character of the story, Jian Wushuang, had already arrived at Soaring Heaven Mansion alone. Soaring Heaven Mansion was the supreme headquarters of Soaring Heaven King Palace on Sea Continent. Although it couldn't be compared to the true lair of Soaring Heaven King Palace on Soaring Heaven Land, it was definitely a taboo place that no one dared to provoke within Sea Continent. At least, Soaring Heaven King Palace had the power to intimidate all forces in Sea Continent. Jian Wushuang was already in the void outside of Soaring Heaven Mansion. I want to take revenge. I want Soaring Heaven King Palace to erupt. I want them to pay a heavy price. So, I have to try my best to kill all their higher-ups, and the higher-ups of Soaring Heaven King Palace will mainly gather in these two places. One is their old lair in Soaring Heaven Land and the other one is Soaring Heaven Mansion. Jian Wushuang smiled. To take revenge and attack a force, was there any other more satisfying way than barging into their supreme headquarters directly and kill a large number of their experts? The two supreme headquarters of Soaring Heaven King Palace, the old lair on Soaring Heaven Land, was the most important place and would be more powerful. With Jian Wushuang's power, he wasn't confident that he could break through. However, Jian Wushuang was extremely confident if it was Soaring Heaven Mansion on Sea Continent. I let real God Xuekong bring back the news saying Sir God Qi Xing is only the beginning. They surely thought I would continue to stay in Sea Continent to seize an opportunity to kill more of their experts. They never thought I would charge into their supreme headquarters straight away. There was a glimpse of light in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Chapter 1763 Soaring Heaven Mansion. The Soaring Heaven Mansion was a giant city. A wise old man had brought his disciple outside the Soaring Heaven Mansion. My disciple, listen to this. When you enter the Soaring Heaven Mansion later on, you must be extremely careful in whatever you do. Even if you were to get in a disagreement with someone else, do your best to bear with it. One more thing. You must absolutely not break the rules of the Soaring Heaven Mansion. If not, no one will be able to save you, the wise old man warned. Master, our five-spirit sect is a big sect in the Sea Continent. Moreover, you are an elder of our sect. Hence, even if it were the Soaring Heaven King Palace, they would give you some face. Thus, is there a need for us to be so careful? The red-robed young lady who was the disciple of the wise old man said, Fool. How can our five-spirit sect be compared to the Soaring Heaven King Palace? If the Soaring Heaven King Palace were to send out an almighty, it would be enough to destroy the five-spirit sect, the wise old man said in a deep voice. In addition, the Soaring Heaven Mansion is a big base of the Soaring Heaven King Palace in the Sea Continent. Here, the Soaring Heaven King Palace has absolute power and they are God. Therefore, who would dare to go against the rules that they have set here? Don't say that I am an elder of the five-spirit sect. Even if the sect master or great elder were to come here personally, as soon as they break the rules of the Soaring Heaven King Palace, the Soaring Heaven King Palace will also take action and kill them without hesitation. They are that unreasonable? The red-robed young lady was shocked. At the same time, she could not help but ask, when will our five-spirit sect catch up to the Soaring Heaven King Palace? Catch up to the Soaring Heaven King Palace? The wise old man became stunned for some time. After that, he shook his head and sighed lightly. The Soaring Heaven King Palace is a super powerhouse and it is a great deterrent in the eternal chaotic world. Hence, it is a powerful overlord. Take the Soaring Heaven Mansion as an example. The Soaring Heaven Mansion is only a portion of the Soaring Heaven King Palace's power. Moreover, even though it has been in the Sea Continent for many years, no one dared to provoke it. Therefore, how much power do you think it possesses? Catching up to such a kind of super powerhouse, Let's wait for an almighty to be born in our five-spirit sect first before we think of this. As for now, we are too far away. As he spoke, the two of them came before the door of the Soaring Heaven Mansion. Over there, There were quite a number of cultivators from each and every corner of the sea continent, and they were all queuing up to enter the soaring heaven mansion. There's so many people. The red-robed young lady was looking at the long queue in front of her. The soaring heaven mansion's first rule is that it forbids flying. If we wish to enter the mansion, we will have to enter through the door obediently. As a form of respect to the soaring heaven king palace, no one dares to break the rules that the soaring heaven king palace has set, the wise old man said. Impressive, the red-robed young lady exclaimed with admiration. However, just then, a crimson-robed figure came over quickly from the void behind them. Moreover, he swept through the void, over the wise old man and the red-robed young lady. The red-robed young lady revealed a surprised expression. Master, didn't you say that flying is forbidden in the soaring heaven mansion? But this is weird. Even if it were experts of the soaring heaven king palace who need to queue to enter the soaring heaven mansion, they would normally stop when they reached the entrance of the mansion. As for this person, the wise old man frowned. It was not just the two of them. Many cultivators before the soaring heaven mansion who were queuing to enter the mansion had also witnessed the arrival of the crimson-robed figure. The crimson-robed figure ignored everyone and flew straight to the front. In the end, he was stopped by a giant formation which covered the soaring heaven mansion. A formation? Jian Wushuang laughed indifferently. Every powerhouse and sect had their own big protective formation. The formation was probably extremely powerful. The soaring heaven mansion was equivalent to the second base of the soaring heaven king palace. Hence, it naturally had a big protective formation. Clang. The sword that Jian Wushuang was carrying on his back had left its scabbard. He has drawn his sword. Drawing his sword in front of the entrance of the soaring heaven mansion? What is he trying to do? Who is this person? Many cultivators before the door of the mansion looked at Jian Wushuang with great surprise. They had absolutely no idea what Jian Wushuang was trying to do. It was only when divine power emerged from the body of Jian Wushuang and a shocking sword essence spread in all directions that the expressions of the cultivators who were present changed. Jian Wushuang had already swung the Blood Mountain sword in his hands. Swish! A gigantic sword light which contained power that could destroy the world struck the big protective formation of the soaring heaven mansion with fury directly. The sword has struck the big formation. He is actually attacking the big formation? Is he crazy? Many cultivators who were present were extremely terrified. Master, didn't you say that for many years, no one dared to provoke the soaring heaven mansion? The red-robed young lady asked her own master. Who knows? This person is probably crazy. Even though he is only a real god, he still dared to attack the big protective formation of the soaring heaven king palace. He is really courting death, the wise old man said in a deep voice. However, just when his words left his mouth, boom! A loud booming sound resounded across the universe and frightening power spread across all directions like tidewater. The power was so great that many cultivators who were present became visibly moved and they revealed terrified expressions. The soaring heaven mansion's giant protective formation then shook madly. What? The soaring heaven mansion's protective formation is actually shaking? A real god only unleashed one stroke, and it actually managed to shake the big protective formation of the soaring heaven mansion? The cultivators who were present found it unbelievable. However, at that moment, Jian Wushuang was squinting his eyes. After that, his sword essence, which was already unreasonable and shocking to begin with, achieved a whole new level again. He unleashed the divine power in his body without holding back. The Blood Mountain sword in his hands were shaking and a great amount of reincarnation power burst forth. Reincarnation sword principle, first move. Buzz! Sword light was swung again, and this time around, the sword light was not as big as before. Instead, it was more dazzling. As soon as the sword light appeared, the dazzling light caused many cultivators, as well as the real gods who were present, to have no choice but to close their eyes. The sword light struck the big formation, and the big formation, which was already shaking crazily and was on the verge of collapsing to begin with, gave off a violent booming sound. The big formation then split open and fell apart completely. The big formation has been broken through? Everyone opened their eyes wide and they were looking at the scene with disbelief. The soaring heaven mansion had existed for many years in the sea continent and it had terrorized all the powerhouses with fear. As such, it was a Leviathan-level super-existence. Moreover, the protective formation that it had deployed was extremely powerful and it was said that even normal almighties were unable to break the big formation apart with force. However, at that moment, the big formation had been destroyed by a real god in 2 strokes. As soon as the big formation collapsed, the soaring heaven mansion was no longer covered up and it was completely exposed in front of Jian Wushuang. Upon seeing that, Jian Wushuang wore a bloodthirsty smile. An ice-cold voice then came out of his mouth and reverberated across the area. Soaring Heaven King Palace, I have come to demand the repayment of a debt. Chapter 1764. Deliver himself to their doorstep in Soaring Heaven Mansion, in the hall located right in the middle. There was an independent space in the hall where lofty thrones towered. There were 4 of them in leading positions. The 4 of them gave out strong auras, far beyond the rest of the peoples. The 4 of them were almighties. Shui Kong, Qi Xing was really killed by Jian Wushuang with just 1 palm? A brawny man who was raging like an ancient beast said. His voice contained boundless murderous intention. Yes, real god Shui Kong's face was twitching in agony. He looked terrified under the pressure of the brawny man. He killed Sir God Qi Xing and wanted me to bring back a message. He said that this is only the beginning. He wants the experts in Soaring Heaven King Palace, including everyone here, to clean our necks and wait. How dare he? The brawny man slammed his arm rest and the throne he was sitting on immediately broke. He stood up and roared, Jian Wushuang really thinks that we of Soaring Heaven King Palace can't do anything about him? All the experts' faces grew grave but most of them were astonished. He had killed Sir God Qi Xing with 1 palm. An almighty had died in 1 move. There wouldn't be many Sir gods who could do that. Qing Fu, among the 4 of us, you are the strongest as you have already reached the peak of Sir God. If you were to fight with Qi Xing, do you think you could kill him instantly? An almighty asked. Everyone immediately looked at Qing Fu. Qing Fu was a young man in a green robe. Although he looked young, he was actually the most ancient one among all experts and he was also the strongest. He had already lived for tens of thousands of years. To kill Qi Xing with 1 move? Sir God Qing Fu thought. If I were to prepare ahead and launch the strongest hit with my all, I couldn't kill Sir God Qi Xing directly. However, when Sir God Qi Xing fought with Jian Wushuang, he didn't prepare ahead of time but straight away sent out his palm that breaks Sir God Qi Xing's attack and kill him. He might be even stronger than I am. The experts creased their eyebrows tightly as they heard what Sir God Qing Fu said. Sir God Qing Fu was already the strongest among them but he wasn't confident that he could win against Jian Wushuang, let alone the rest of them. B****, how long has it been? Jian Wushuang has already improved to this level? The ancient, beast-like brawny man roared. The inverse cultivator is too scary. Jian Wushuang was so talented. Back when he was in the 8th lair, Soaring Heaven King Palace should have gone all out. We should have paid a price and killed him. It's already too late now. Let's think about what to do. Everyone started discussing in the hall but they couldn't figure out any countermeasures. Jian Wushuang was too powerful and he could kill an almighty with just 1 palm. Relying on his power, if he were to start massacre wantonly in Seat Continent, Soaring Heaven King Palace couldn't do anything about Jian Wushuang with their power on Sea Continent. I have already reported this to Emperor God Tian Shao. Emperor God Tian Shao will figure out a way. After all, Soaring Heaven King Palace has been the overlord for so many years. Our foundation and power isn't shakeable by Jian Wushuang alone. By then, Jian Wushuang will definitely have to pay a great price for his arrogance. Sir God Qing Fu said. Everyone heard and nodded in agreement. They were obviously very confident in Soaring Heaven King Palace's power. Just then, there was a sudden loud thud. Along with the noise, a great power swept in. The cultivators in Soaring Heaven Mansion were shaken. The higher-ups of Soaring Heaven King Palace in the hall were naturally frightened as well. But this movement, it spread from the protective array. Someone is attacking our protective array? The experts were first stunned, then instantly raged with anger. How dare he! As everyone cursed, large number of figures plunged out from Soaring Heaven Mansion. The four almighties in the lofty hall and the top chaotic real gods flew out. Before they could even leave Soaring Heaven Mansion to find out who it was, a sword light swung out. The sword light was too brilliant. Even with the protective array, everyone could feel how scary the sword light was. As the sword light descended, the protective array of Soaring Heaven Mansion collapsed completely. Then a cold voice was heard. Soaring Heaven King Palace, I came to take revenge. The voice was deafening and it constantly reverberated in Soaring Heaven Mansion. There was boundless coldness in the voice and it struck fear into the hearts of many experts of Soaring Heaven King Palace. The higher-ups of Soaring Heaven King Palace, including Sir God Ching Fu, their faces grew grave when they heard him. Take revenge? Real God Shui Kong's eyes were wide. It's Jian Wushuang. It's him. Jian Wushuang? Many experts of Soaring Heaven King Palace were surprised. He has guts. Soaring Heaven King Palace was having a headache trying to seize a chance to kill him. He took the initiative and visited us instead? He's only a real god and he dares to barge into Soaring Heaven Mansion. He's courting death. An angry voice continued to reverberate. Let's go. Sir God Ching Fu's glare was cold and it contained boundless murderous intention. He waved and plunged to the source of the voice along with the higher-ups of Soaring Heaven King Palace. The moment they reached the entrance, the experts of Soaring Heaven King Palace was the figure in a crimson robe who looked unyielding in the void before them. He was alone and he held a crimson sword in his hand with billowing sword intention. He saw the experts of Soaring Heaven King Palace came out together but he wasn't afraid. Looking at Jian Wushuang in front of them, everyone from Soaring Heaven King Palace was filled with murderous intentions. Just like how the elder from Five Spirit Sect had mentioned at the mansion gate before, Soaring Heaven King Palace held sway over Sea Continent. Ever since they had built Soaring Heaven Mansion, there had been hardly anyone who had dared to provoke the dignity of Soaring Heaven Mansion over the years. Those who had were instantly killed by Soaring Heaven Mansion with thunderous skill and their sect had been exterminated. It had always been like that. Due to the massacres over the years, Soaring Heaven Mansion had had definite authority on Sea Continent. But then, Jian Wushuang had come to Soaring Heaven Mansion alone and broken the Soaring Heaven Mansion's protective array. Jian Wushuang, alone with one sword, had delivered himself to their doorstep. It was also the first time someone had delivered themselves to Soaring Heaven Mansion doorstep since they were established. There is a road to heaven and you won't go. There is no door to hell but you barged in. Jian Wushuang, no matter how capable you are going to die, without a doubt. Chapter 1765 Flowers bloom and fade. I will definitely die? From just the few of you? Jian Wushuang laughed nonchalantly and disdain flashed in his eyes. At that moment, although there was a total of 4 almighties standing in front of him, among the 4 of them, only Sir God Ching Fu who stood in front had the right to catch his attention. As for the other 3, they were merely normal Sir Gods. Hence, such a lineup was unable to make Jian Wushuang feel worried. The 4 of us are enough to kill you. Sir God Ching Fu had a great amount of aura. After giving a furious cry, his body was the first to move. At the same time that he moved, a double-edged, giant axe appeared in his hands. While releasing divine power, Sir God Ching Fu held the giant axe with both his hands and raised it high in the air. Rumble! A towering axe shadow appeared out of thin air at the top of the void. The axe shadow then swung out and it looked as though it could split heaven and earth apart. When the axe shadow was swung, the whole universe became dead silent. Everyone present was staring at the axe shadow persistently and their eyes were filled with shock. As for Jian Wushuang, he wore an indifferent smile. After taking a glance at the giant axe shadow which was heading toward him, he swung the sword in his hands immediately. He did not unleash a strong sword move. He merely swung his sword which was imbued with reincarnation power and most importantly, his ultimate divine power. Bam! With a loud sound, the giant axe shadow shook violently and dissipated right away. Within the sea of dispersed divine power, An ice-cold sword light was still moving heartlessly, and it headed straight to Sir God Ching Fu. Sir God Ching Fu's expression changed greatly, and he placed his giant axe in front of his chest immediately. Clang. Another loud sound could be heard, and Sir God Ching Fu's body was sent flying instantly. While he was flying, he rolled about continuously, and it was only after a long time that his body stopped moving. After stopping, Sir God Ching Fu's body shook, and he spit out a huge mouthful of blood with a wah sound. His expression turned pale at once. When everyone from the Soaring Heaven King Palace saw such a scene, all of them turned pale with fright. Among the many experts of the Soaring Heaven King Palace present, Sir God Ching Fu was one of the most powerful people, and he was a top Sir God. Even though the experts from the higher-ups of the Soaring Heaven King Palace knew that Jian Wushuang had unleashed shocking abilities to kill Sir God Qi Xing with one palm, they had still thought that Sir God Ching Fu could suppress Jian Wushuang. Moreover, no matter what, he would still be able to fight with Jian Wushuang head-on at the very least. However, when the both of them fought for real, with one face-off, Sir God Ching Fu had sustained serious injuries. Too strong. His power is too strong. Sir God Ching Fu exclaimed with admiration. He did not know that as soon as Jian Wushuang had achieved Stage 3 Ultimate Real God, his abilities and body underwent a transformation, and both of them had achieved the level of an Emperor God. In other words, in terms of power alone, he was not inferior to an Emperor God at all. Previously, in the Sea City, for him to be able to kill Sir God Qi Xing with a palm, apart from the fact that the reincarnation palm was already powerful to begin with, the most important thing was the suppression in terms of power. Emperor gods and Sir gods were one step away from one another. However, the difference in terms of their powers was like heaven and earth. Jian Wushuang's abilities are too frightening, and they are definitely not inferior to that of a real Emperor God. In a one-to-one fight, no one among us is his opponent. Quick, use that move. Sir God Ching Fu suppressed his blood and qi with force and shouted furiously. The three remaining Sir Gods of the Soaring Heaven King Palace reacted. Together with Sir God Ching Fu, they unleashed a special handprint toward the ground below them. Big formation rise. Rumble, the ground shook. At that moment, the whole Soaring Heaven mansion seemed to be alive. Crack, crack. Cracks appeared on the ground and green vines came out of them. There were a huge number of vines, and they were spreading with shocking speed. In an instant, they covered the ground of the whole Soaring Heaven mansion completely, and brilliant green light illuminated the area. At the same time, a great amount of life emerged, and the whole universe became filled with life. A formation? Jian Wushuang was looking at the scene below him as well as the infinite amount of murderous intent around him. He raised the corners of his mouth immediately. Interesting. Jian Wushuang was not worried in the slightest bit. It should be known that back then in the Buddhist Demon Sea, even though 5 Sir Gods had teamed up and unleashed the killing formation of 9 cuts, they were unable to do anything against him in the end. Instead, they were defeated by him, and he had even killed one person on the spot. At that moment, Jian Wushuang's abilities were greater than before. The 4 Sir Gods of the Soaring Heaven King Palace were standing on the ground, which was covered by the green vines, and just like before, Sir God Ching Fu was standing in front. Moreover, their bodies were covered by the green vines, and it looked as if they had fused with the big formation. With that, the only thing that was revealed were the eyes of the 4 of them. These 4 pairs of eyes were currently staring at Jian Wushuang closely, and they were filled with an infinite amount of murderous intent. Jian Wushuang, I admit that you are very powerful. However, it's a pity that you are too arrogant. An ice-cold voice could be heard from Sir God Ching Fu. By staying somewhere in the sea continent, even if you were to kill the experts of the Soaring Heaven King Palace wantonly, the Soaring Heaven Mansion will be unable to do anything against you with its power. However, it's a pity that you have taken the initiative to come to us. In the Soaring Heaven Mansion, with the aid of the big formation, the 4 of us can even fight against a real Emperor God. And you will die for sure. That Sir God Ching Fu's eyes glowed with a shrill light. Flowers bloom. Buzz. Amidst the uncountable number of vines, a brawny green vine appeared. The speed of that vine was extremely fast. When it appeared in front of Jian Wushuang, it started to transform straight away. An exceptionally beautiful, giant green lotus flower bloomed, and it contained an unbelievable amount of aura of life. As soon as it bloomed, it covered the whole soaring heaven mansion. Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted. When he looked at the green lotus flower below him, he did not feel that the green lotus flower was dangerous. At that moment, Sir God Qing Fu shouted again. Flowers fade. Boom. The universe shook. The soaring heaven mansion, which was originally filled with life, was replaced by an infinite amount of dead energy in a split second. The innumerous number of vines on the ground below him started to wither immediately. At the same time, the gigantic green lotus flower withered. However, as the green lotus flower withered, it drew everything to itself fiercely. Naturally, Jian Wushuang was drawn in as well, and the green lotus flower became a flower bud. The flower bud withered at an extremely fast speed, and even its life was depleting madly. My life force is being depleted quickly? Jian Wushuang's expression changed fiercely. He finally understood the strange thing about the big formation. The formation possessed the ability to transform life into death. If I am unable to destroy this lotus flower completely and get out, even if it's me, my life will be totally sucked dry and I will die here, Jian Wushuang muttered. Although his body contained the king of venomous worms who could help him to recover, the king of venomous worms' recovery ability was obviously incomparable to the speed that his life was being depleted at. Chapter 1766 Thunderous Rout. Humph! A cold humph and a boundless divine power instantly exploded from Jian Wushuang. At the same time, Jian Wushuang's divine body magnified at a terrifying speed. 10 zhang. 100 zhang. 1,000 zhang. 10,000 zhang. A huge dark gold ancient gold body grew tremendously in size. In addition to the ravages of divine power, he forced the wrapped green lotus flower to break and a hole appeared. Jian Wushuang held a sword in one hand and slashed at the hole. Then, the green lotus flower broke apart. What? The four Sir Gods in the formation looked shocked. The move that they had performed using the formation, even an ordinary Emperor God would find hard to shake it off. However, Jian Wushuang had resolved it so easily. Don't waste time with him. Let's use the strongest move. Sir God Qing Fu bellowed. All right, the other three Sir Gods nodded heavily. In the eyes of the four Sir Gods, there was a cyan shimmer while boundless divine power flowed into the formation. Life force, continuous reincarnation. Last forever. The withering became full of vigor again and the vines were gathering at an insane speed. Then, they formed an ancient green tree. The ancient green tree looked as though it had existed since ancient times. It constantly grew and extended to the sky. Just as the ancient green tree formed its shape, the extremely thick branch. A green branch swept at Jian Wushuang. Everyone on the scene looked surprised at the green branch. Jian Wushuang's eyes dilated in shock subconsciously. From his viewpoint, it equaled a Sir God's full hit. This is your final reliance? Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. His huge ancient god body had shrunk to only 10 zhang tall, but he gripped Blood Mountain sword tightly in his hand. Jian Wushuang's eyes let out a faint light and boundless reincarnation power swept out. Reincarnation sword principle, the second move. There was a flash of murderous intention and Blood Mountain sword was suddenly swung out along with boundless reincarnation power. Reincarnation sword principle. Jian Wushuang had created it via his understanding of the Palm One-Star Man had left in his head during the few thousand years when Jian Wushuang had been recovering in seclusion. Jian Wushuang had created a total of 2 moves for the sword principle. He had performed the first move earlier and it broke Soaring Heaven Mansion's protective array. Then he was performing the second move. Bang! The sword light with boundless reincarnation power hit the green branch and a terrifying power exploded. In an instant, it was dark all around. A boundless divine power suddenly swept out in all directions and everyone gulped in shock. Suddenly, it was only a soft crack, but Sir God Qing Fu and the other 3 Sir Gods' eyes dilated in shock. Then, before their dumbstruck gazes, the green branch that they were driving with the formation cracked from the middle. Then, A sword light pierced the green wood and it broke into two. The sword light quivered and continued to move in the direction of the four of them. Sir God Ching Fu harumphed coldly and the life force instantly gathered in front of them and formed layers of defense. With difficulty, they managed to block the sword light. However, just then, two resplendent golden lights suddenly lit up and they appeared behind the four of them. *T. The four of their faces grew grave. Of course they knew about the golden lights. They were the two Hongjun golden swords that Jian Wushuang controlled. They had just withstood the sword light that Jian Wushuang had struck and the two Hongjun golden sword had suddenly attacked them from behind. The four of them didn't respond in time. Pissed. The resplendent golden light instantly pierced two heads. As for the remaining two, they fled in panic. The formation of everlasting green that covered the entire soaring heaven mansion collapsed. Hee, I thought the four of you teaming up would bring me joy. From the looks of it, you're only SSO, Jian Wushuang smiled and the two golden lights twinkled next to him. In the void far away, Sir God Ching Fu and the beast-like man stared at Jian Wushuang. They had never expected that they would be defeated by Jian Wushuang when the four of them teamed up to form the formation of everlasting green. On top of that, Jian Wushuang had killed two of them. One should know that they were confident to even fight with an ordinary emperor god with the formation. But Jian Wushuang was only a real god. Since the formation of everlasting green collapsed and the four Sir gods were heavily defeated. Then, I told real god Xue Kong to bring you a message earlier for you to clean your neck. Now, there was a flash of murderous intention in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Sush. He suddenly moved and appeared among the surrounding crowd. The crowd were experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Many of them were real gods of Soaring Heaven King Palace and there were many universe gods as well. However, Jian Wushuang showed no mercy. Die! He swept the sword across and a sword light was swung out brutally. A total of 13 real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace, along with 3 top universe gods, couldn't even react before the sword light swept past them. They were instantly killed. At the same time, 2 resplendent golden lights suddenly swept out and shuttled through the crowd. The power of Hongjun Golden Sword wasn't something real god or universe god could withstand. Plus, its speed was so fast and there were 2 swords. Pissed. There were continuous noises and the void instantly turned into a living hell. No! Hurry up and run. Spare me. Don't kill me. The experts in Soaring Heaven King Palace gave out a blood-curdling scream simultaneously. Sir God Ching Fu and the beast-like brawny man in the void far away were furious at the sight. ****. The brawny man let out an angry roar and charged at Jian Wushuang. Don't act on impulse. Sir God Ching Fu wanted to stop him but the brawny man was in complete madness and his eyes were bloodshot. Jian Wushuang was terrified but thrilled at the brawny man's arrival. No matter how many real gods I killed, how could it be more satisfying than killing an almighty? Jian Wushuang smiled and murderous intention filled his eyes. As the brawny man arrived, the 2 golden lights shuttling to and from the crowd suddenly changed their directions and aimed at the brawny man. The brawny man wielded a saber and hit the 2 golden lights. Ding! A loud thud and the power of the first Hongjun golden sword made the brawny man retreat and spit a mouthful of blood. Then, the second Hongjun golden sword immediately pounded and pierced the brawny man's head. Then, the 4 Sir gods in Soaring Heaven Mansion, Jian Wushuang had already killed 3 of them. Chapter 1767 The Arrival of an Emperor God. Seeing that the brawny man was killed easily, although Sir God Ching Fu was in great sorrow, he felt even more helpless. Even with the formation of everlasting green that was unleashed with 4 Sir gods teaming up, Jian Wushuang was still able to break through it. At that moment, there was no power within the Soaring Heaven Mansion which could stop Jian Wushuang. As for Jian Wushuang, he continued his massacre and even almighties were easily killed by him. Hence, the real gods of the Soaring Heaven King Palace were even more powerless and more than half of them were massacred after a short amount of time. Stop it! A furious cry could be heard and it resounded across the universe. When Sir God Qing Fu, who had a ghastly pale expression and was filled with sorrow, heard the cry, he raised his head immediately and his eyes shone brilliantly. He's here. He's finally here. Sir God Qing Fu clenched both his fists tightly and he cried tears of joy. After the loud cry was heard, 3 figures which emitted shocking aura flew over hastily and they appeared in the sky of the soaring heaven mansion in a split second. Among the 3 of them, the person in front was a golden-robed man. The golden-robed man had a huge amount of aura and it was many times more than the aura of anyone who was present. He was one of the 2 important people of the soaring heaven king palace. Emperor God Tian Shao. As for the 2 people behind Emperor God Tian Shao, they were the other 2 top Sir Gods of the soaring heaven king palace. Jian Wushuang had gotten reliable information since a long time ago. He knew that in the soaring heaven king palace, apart from the 2 emperor gods, there were 3 top Sir Gods and Sir God Qing Fu was one of them. At that moment, the soaring heaven king palace's Emperor God Tian Shao, as well as its 3 top Sir Gods, were all present. However, when they arrived, the soaring heaven mansion was already stained with so much blood that a blood river could be formed and it was filled with bodies. It was just like the Azura Hell. Among many experts of the soaring heaven king palace who were inside the soaring heaven mansion, 3 of the 4 Sir God experts who were of a high level were killed on the spot and only Sir God Qing Fu remained alive. As for the remaining real gods and universe gods, more than 70% of them were killed by Jian Wushuang and only a small number of them managed to escape. Upon seeing that, the 3 figures who had arrived were extremely terrified. In particular, the bodies of the 3 almighties were worrisome. The soaring heaven mansion was the second base of the soaring heaven king palace. Moreover, it was an existence which oversaw a land and it was extremely important to the soaring heaven king palace. When they knew that Jian Wushuang had appeared in the sea continent and that he had also killed Sir God Qi Xing with a flip of his palm, the soaring heaven king palace paid close attention to him. Previously in the base of the soaring heaven king palace, Emperor God Tian Shao was discussing how to kill Jian Wushuang. However, never did they expect Jian Wushuang to take the initiative to charge into the soaring heaven mansion before they could even take action. Moreover, after just a short amount of time, he had completely defeated all the power that the soaring heaven mansion had by himself and massacred everyone wantonly. Even though Emperor God Tian Shao had hurried over via a wormhole at once, he was still too slow in terms of speed. An unprecedented blow had already been dealt to the soaring heaven king palace. It was all right for those real gods and universe gods to die. After all, the soaring heaven king palace had a great background. Hence, losing some real gods and universe gods were considered nothing as they would recover from it completely after some time of nurturing. However, it was different for almighties. During this battle, Jian Wushuang had killed 3 of their almighties. By adding Sir God Qi Xing from before, it was a total of 4 of them. It should be known that there was only a total of 11 almighties in the whole soaring heaven king palace and any of them was a super existence who could frighten everyone. However, in just a short amount of time, Jian Wushuang had killed more than 1/3 of them. Since the soaring heaven king palace was founded, when had they ever suffered such huge losses? Emperor God Tian Shao, you were really slow in coming here. Jian Wushuang stood while holding his sword and he was looking at the 3 experts who had come proudly. Even though Emperor God Tian Shao had come personally, he was still not fearful in the slightest. Jian Wushuang, I swear that I will definitely skin you alive, tear open your bones, throw you into the 9th level of the soaring heaven king palace's prison and torture you for millions upon millions of years so that it is possible for you to neither live nor die. An extremely cold voice could be heard from Emperor God Tian Shao and an unprecedented amount of murderous intent burst forth from him. Ha, skin me alive and tear open my bones? With just the few of you? Jian Wushuang's eyes were filled with contempt. Among the many almighties of the soaring heaven king palace, only Emperor God Tianling, who traveled in the 2nd layer throughout the year, could make Jian Wushuang feel fearful. As for the other people, which included the Emperor God Tian Shao who was in front of him, they were unable to make Jian Wushuang feel fearful. Little kid die. Emperor God Tian Shao did not say any unnecessary things and an infinite amount of murderous intent burst forth from him. In an instant, The whole universe was as if it had entered a storm that was composed of murderous intent. As Emperor God Tian Shao's body moved, an ancient hammer which glowed with dim, green light appeared in his hands. The green hammer was emitting thick power, and it made Jian Wushuang squint his eyes as soon as it appeared. Emperor God Tian Shao is rumored to have 2 chaos divine treasure. One of them is the armor that he is wearing, and the other should be the big hammer that he is holding, Jian Wushuang muttered, and he was not frightened in the slightest. Swish! Jian Wushuang's body moved instantly. Secret skill of De Leiyuan, star-destroying thunder. Emperor God Tian Shao gave a furious cry, and the ancient hammer in his hands emitted a great amount of green light. Rays of green light flooded the universe, and they became a giant shadow. The shadow was filled with thunderbolt power, and it was just like an unmatched thunder god. He was holding a big hammer with one hand tightly, and as the big hands moved, an infinite amount of thunderbolt power gathered. After that, the big hammer was swung out fiercely. Rumble! The heavens fell and the earth cracked. For the large number of cultivators who had already retreated extremely far away, when they saw the green big hammer being swung down, all of them were shocked and dumbfounded. This is the power of an emperor god. An emperor god, a real emperor god. Too strong, this power is too strong. Countless people cried out in alarm. Even Sir God Qing Fu, as well as the other 2 top Sir Gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace, exclaimed in admiration. Although Sir Gods and Emperor Gods were only 1 step away from one another, the gap between them was like heaven and earth. For example, for the formation of Everlasting Green, which was unleashed previously when Sir God Qing Fu had teamed up with the 3 Sir Gods who had already fallen, it could only barely compete against a normal Emperor God. However, such an Emperor God referred to those Emperor Gods who had just made a breakthrough, and their abilities were considered the weakest among the Emperor Gods. As for Emperor God Tian Shao, as one of the founders of the Soaring Heaven King Palace, he possessed many powerful secret skills, and his abilities were considered extremely out of the ordinary among the Emperor Gods. In addition, he possessed 2 chaos divine treasures. As such, he could definitely be considered someone powerful among the Emperor Gods. With such a super existence taking action personally, Sir God Qing Fu and the 2 other Sir Gods became even more confident. No matter how strong Jian Wushuang is, he is still a real god in the end. Although an inverse cultivator is nature-defying, it does not mean that he is invincible. Hence, killing many Sir Gods while being a real god should be his limit. Therefore, as soon as he encounters an Emperor God, no matter what trump card he has, he will no doubt die. That's right. This Jian Wushuang is dead for sure. Since Emperor God Tian Shao has taken action personally, there will no longer be any room for him to struggle. Chapter 1768. Versus Emperor God Tian Shao. An Emperor God's attack was earth-shattering. The cultivators on the scene firmly believed that Jian Wushuang stood no chance of living. When Jian Wushuang saw the unrivaled Thor swung his hammer, he smirked while his eyes gave out a battle intention. Back in Buddhist Demon Sea, I flashed all my trump cards when I was fighting with Emperor God Shuegu, but I still couldn't be evenly matched. But now, I am different from before. An Emperor God does not strike fear in me anymore. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists. Today, let me see just how strong an Emperor God is. Fight! Jian Wushuang spat the word, and a terrifying aura soared from his body. Jian Wushuang's ancient god body changed again. His muscular ancient god arm wielded Blood Mountain Sword. The boundless sword intention swept out. Reincarnation Sword Principle, the second move. He slashed and the earth shook as though he was going to break the sky. Bang! There was a loud thud and Jian Wushuang's body quivered. He took 3 steps back, and every single step was about 10,000 apart. The boundless divine power dispersed, and countless palaces and pavilions shattered into dust. Emperor God Tian Shao took 1 step back as well. That 1 step was sonorous and vigorous. He stomped and the void below broke. Humph! Emperor God Tian Shao let out a cold humph. His body was covered in green lightning that crackled. Then, there was a Thor shadow that soared from his body and roared. His roar shook the earth, and a 1,000-mile-wide black hole instantly appeared from nowhere. In the black hole, the thunderous, huge hand extended its grip toward Jian Wushuang like lightning. The thunderous, huge hand contained terrifying power that could burst any Sir God's body with its grip. Jian Wushuang smirked in disdain and pointed with his index finger. Then, a boundless divine power revolved. It tore another huge hole in the void. From the hole, there was a huge, ancient hand that extended out. The hand concentrated all its power on one finger, and the point was terrifying. It was the sixth finger of ancient god, Sun Corrosion. The thunderous hand and the ancient finger collided. The two bolts of terrifying power pushed against one another, but the thunder hand was shaking vigorously and looked like it was going to break. Bang. There was a loud bang and the thunderous, huge hand broke apart. Emperor God Tian Shao, I already took 2 of your attacks. Now, it's your turn to take my own palm. Jian Wushuang let out a hearty laugh and took a huge stride forward. His huge stride brought about terrifying power that could destroy the universe. On Jian Wushuang's right palm, boundless divine power crystallized and he slammed. Reincarnation palm. The palm brought along boundless reincarnation power. This palm derived from Jian Wushuang, mimicking the terrifying palm that one-star man sealed in his head the other days. In terms of power, reincarnation palm was actually stronger than the other 2 moves of reincarnation sword principle. Back in Sea Continent, Jian Wushuang had killed Sir God Qi Xing with this palm. Jian Wushuang didn't go all out back then. He never once let his divine power explode entirely until then. His divine power of Sir God level had exploded and he performed the palm with all his strength. The huge palm pressed down. Everywhere that it passed turned into ashes. The people who were watching the battle couldn't help but gulp. Even Emperor God Tian Shao was shocked at the sight. Break! Emperor God Tian Shao roared. Then, there were space cracks in the void under his feet and they spread across like a spiderweb. The green hammer in his hand was covered in green lightning. The hammer was instantly magnified by a few folds and in the end swung out in attack brutally. The low thud resounded across the vast universe and fell into a divine power storm. Suddenly, a figure plunged out from the divine power storm and stood in the void. Although Emperor God Tian Shao was still carrying murderous intention, his gaze grew extremely solemn. Jian Wushuang, I belittled you. I never thought that you would already have the requisite to fight with an Emperor God. The surrounding cultivators were shocked at the comment. Emperor God Tian Shao spoke himself. He said that Jian Wushuang had the power to fight with an Emperor God. A real god, could he really fight with an Emperor God? He, Emperor God Tian Shao, an Emperor God expert, your power shouldn't be just this level, right? Jian Wushuang smiled. He had once fought with Emperor God Xuegu and Emperor God Xuegu was extremely powerful. Even if he fought with Emperor God Xuegu again, he would feel pressured. Although Emperor God Tian Shao couldn't compare to Emperor God Xuegu, their powers would be extremely close. Hence, his power definitely wouldn't just be at that level. Humph, you're smart. I shall show you what an Emperor God is today. Emperor God Tian Shao's voice shook the earth. Just as he spoke, rumble. Heaven and earth shook as boundless thunderous power swept out and formed an ocean of lightning. In the ocean of lightning, large amount of green sacred lightning crackled and filled a range of 10,000 miles. Everyone at the scene could feel the power that could destroy the universe from the ocean of lightning. The strength of the power could make any Sir God feel hopeless. Fighting power of an Emperor God was on full display then. Now, this is interesting. Jian Wushuang smiled as he beamed with excitement. Secret skill of De Lei Yuan, eternal ocean of lightning. There was green lighting that burst out of Emperor God Tian Shao's eye too. Suddenly, the terrifying ocean of lightning that covered an expanse of 10,000 miles covered Jian Wushuang. Even if over 10 Sir Gods teamed up in the ocean of lightning, they would instantly melt into nothingness as well. Sacred lightning secret skill, I happen to know of them too. I wonder whose is stronger? Jian Wushuang smiled and instigated with his right hand. Come on, lightning, Tong. In the sky above, there was suddenly a huge crack. The huge crack parted the universe into 2. From the crack, walala. A terrifying life-destroying sacred thunder suddenly descended. Every single strike of life-destroying sacred thunder was as thick as the mountain. Every single strike contained terrifying power that struck fear into a god. At that moment there were about 100 strikes of life-destroying sacred thunder that descend simultaneously. After about 100 strikes of life-destroying sacred thunder descended, it immediately merged together at terrifying speed and became a huge life-destroying sacred dragon that stretched over 10,000 miles. The life-destroying sacred dragon bellowed. Suddenly, the green ocean of lightning flooded in. One of the 3 ancient gods' secret skills, thunder attracting skill. To fight sacred lightning with sacred lightning. Both collided. Chapter 1769 Scheme. Boom. The universe shook and the life-destroying thunder dragon, which stretched across a distance of tens of thousands of miles, charged into the sea of thunder and moved around violently, causing the sea of thunder to be in disarray. However, after a short amount of time, the infinite amount of green sacred thunder in the sea of thunder tore apart the life-destroying thunder dragon. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Although the thunder-attracting skill was one of the 3 secret skills of the ancient god clan and its power would be out of the ordinary if it were unleashed with Jian Wushuang's current divine power, in the end, this secret skill would only be more powerful if it were unleashed with ancient god power. Moreover, Jian Wushuang had not fully mastered this secret skill yet. Hence, it was normal for him to not be able to match the sea of thunder which Emperor God Tian Shao had unleashed. When the thunder dragon was destroyed, the sea of thunder continued to head toward Jian Wushuang. At the same time, Emperor God Tian Shao himself was heading over. Break! Jian Wushuang's Blood Mountain sword left its scabbard. The sword light was sharp and it was swung out while imbued with reincarnation power. The sea of thunder, which was already in disarray after the attack of the life-destroying thunder dragon, was split open by force and it started to spread in all directions immediately. However, Emperor God Tian Shao's body came out of the crack of the sea of thunder fiercely. Along the way, 3 boundless thunder lights emerged and they formed 3 figures beside him. The 3 figures were exactly the same as Emperor God Tian Shao. All of them were holding a big hammer each, and they had a huge amount of aura, forming 3 clones at the same time. Moreover, their abilities are all so strong? Jian Wushuang was surprised. The secret skill that Emperor God Tian Shao had just unleashed was indeed exceptional. The 3 Thunderbolt clones that he had created should have 50% of his real Bodis fighting capabilities. If they were to team up, they would certainly pose a threat. Jian Wushuang Dai. Emperor God Tian God filled with an immeasurable amount of murderous intent. Who is afraid of whom? Jian Wushuang laughed heartily. When Emperor God Tian Shao and his 3 Thunderbolt clones attacked, Jian Wushuang's body shook violently. After that, heads and arms started to appear from his stalwart ancient god body. In an instant, Jian Wushuang changed into a state where he had 5 heads and 10 arms. His 10 arms were each holding a sword. After that, he attacked right away and clashed with Emperor God Tian Shao head-on. Shocking booming sounds could be heard repeatedly and the sounds were extremely loud. Jian Wushuang's swift and huge sword light as well as Emperor God Tian Shao's fierce big hammer, which contained an infinite amount of thunderbolt, clashed in the void head-on. Every time they clashed, the power generated from the clash would shake the universe, and this caused many of the cultivators present to shiver with fear. In the surrounding void, countless cultivators' throats felt restless, and they were observing the shocking battle between the 2 experts in front of them with their eyes opened wide. The battle had caused the place to plunge into chaos and caused it to be filled with darkness. The surrounding people had already been overwhelmed by it since a long time ago. It was unknown how much time had passed. Piss off! Jian Wushuang gave a furious roar and his Blood Mountain sword expanded into a towering sword immediately. It was then swung fiercely. What a joke! Emperor God Tian Shao laughed coldly and his big hammer was swung out mightily to intercept the towering sword. Boom! With a loud sound, the bodies of Jian Wushuang and Emperor God Tian Shao were both sent flying. After they regained their posture, Emperor God Tian Shao still had a huge amount of aura like before. As for the 3 Thunderbolt clones beside him, they were uninjured. As for Jian Wushuang, he originally had 5 heads and 10 arms. However, at that moment, 2 heads had already burst and there were some marks of thunderbolts sweeping past his body. It was obvious that he looked a bit miserable. Emperor God Tian Shao was indeed an Emperor God-level super expert. By unleashing a secret skill to create 3 thunderbolt clones to team up with him, even though Jian Wushuang possessed 5 heads and 10 arms and had combined that with his attack skills, he was still at a disadvantage. Jian Wushuang, I admit that your abilities are already enough for you to stand on equal footing with a normal Emperor God. However, you are still very far away from being able to compete with me, Emperor God Tian Shao said in an icy tone. Is that so? Jian Wushuang gave a weird laughter. Emperor God Tian Shao, as one of the founders of the Soaring Heaven King Palace, you must have collected information about me before taking action against me. Hence, you should know this. When I fought with an Almighty for the first time, which is when I fought with Sir God Qianlan of the Soaring Heaven King Palace, what did I use to suppress him? Upon hearing that, Emperor God Tian Shao's expression changed abruptly. At the same time, he could hear 2 sounds of intense wind coming from behind him. The 2 sounds of wind were 2 brilliant rays of golden light, and they were dragging their long golden tails along with them. They then swept past the void and headed for his head with lightning speed. For the 2 Hongjun golden swords, Jian Wushuang had been hiding them intentionally. Ever since he had started to fight with Emperor God Tian Shao, he had not used them. Even when he was at a disadvantage in close-quarters combat, he still did not use them. It was not until then that the 2 Hongjun golden swords appeared behind Emperor God Tian Shao quietly. This was a killing move that Jian Wushuang had concealed and prepared carefully to the best of his abilities. 2 rays of golden light moved quickly and they contained an enormous amount of power. It was too fast and too sudden. When Emperor God Tian Shao realized it, there was no time for him to dodge or block it. However, at that critical moment, Emperor God Tian Shao gave a cold snort and the golden robe that he wore changed into golden armor instantly. The golden armor started to spread quickly and it covered his whole body in a split second. Naturally, his head was covered. Clang, clang. The 2 Hongjun golden swords struck Emperor God Tian Shao's head in succession. Moreover, they struck the same position. As there was a great amount of attack power, Emperor God Tian Shao's body was sent flying and it was only after a long time that he regained his posture. After that, Emperor God Tian Shao turned his head and revealed a face that was slightly pale. At the same time, there was some blood at the corners of his mouth and his eyes were filled with flames of fury. Jian Wushuang, from the very start, you have hidden these 2 golden swords intentionally. You are really scheming and it is a great move. If not for me possessing defensive armor, I would have fallen to your scheme, Emperor God Tian Shao said furiously. Jian Wushuang's eyes shrank. Is that golden armor Emperor God Tian Shao's second chaos divine treasure? Jian Wushuang murmured. There was nothing that he could do. Emperor God experts were extremely powerful and it was not easy to kill them. Jian Wushuang had known that since a long time ago. Hence, he had hidden his Hongjun golden swords at the start. After that, he would have found the perfect opportunity to launch a surprise attack and attempt to deal a heavy blow to Emperor God Tian Shao. However, it was a pity that Emperor God Tian Shao possessed a Chaos Divine treasure-level defensive armor. With his armor bearing the impact of his Hongjun golden sword's attack, he got off with light injuries. As expected of one of the founders of the Soaring Heaven King Palace. With that defensive armor, even if top Emperor Gods were to attack you personally, they would probably be unable to kill you as well, Jian Wushuang laughed. While you are unable to kill me, I am able to kill you, Emperor God Tian Shao's eyes turned ice cold. The moment his words left his mouth, he flipped his palm abruptly and a pitch-black, long arrow appeared on his hand. The surface of the pitch-black, long arrow was covered with a layer of dim light and the dim light looked unusually strange. The moment Emperor God Tian Shao took out the long arrow, Jian Wushuang's eyes shrank fiercely. Chapter 1770? Chapter 1770. Shake his sleeves and leave that arrow. Jian Wushuang stared at the black arrow in Emperor God Tian Shao's hand. He could feel a strong sense of crisis from the black arrow. It was obvious that the arrow wasn't ordinary. Soaring Heaven King Palace has been an overlord in eternal chaotic world for so long, and they have a solid foundation. Not only do they have many experts, they also have many trump cards. This arrow must be one of Soaring Heaven King Palace's trump cards, Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. In the entire Soaring Heaven King Palace, in terms of experts, there was only Emperor God Tianling who was constantly wandering in the second lair who he had scruples about. Besides the experts, Soaring Heaven King Palace had some trump cards that shouldn't be belittled. As such, Jian Wushuang didn't barge into Soaring Heaven King Palace's old lair directly but opted for Soaring Heaven Mansion instead. Jian Wushuang, the arrow is extraordinary. You have to deal with it carefully. King of Venomous Worm's voice suddenly rang in Jian Wushuang's head. Jian Wushuang nodded heavily. In the void before him, Emperor God Tian Shao flashed a malicious smile after he took out the arrow. Then, he flipped his wrist and a bow appeared in his hand. The bow had a threatening aura as well. However, it was far from a chaotic divine treasure. Then, Emperor God Tian Shao placed the arrow to the bow before countless experts. As he pulled the string and aimed the black arrow at Jian Wushuang, he could feel that he was completely locked onto by magical power. Regardless of where he ran to, the power would catch up with him and destroy him. Jian Wushuang, you should be proud to make me use a God Slayer arrow on you. Emperor God Tian Shao spoke coldly as he stretched the string on the bow. The magical power that was holding onto Jian Wushuang grew stronger. Die! With a deep bellow, the extremely tense bowstring was let loose. A black extermination light burst out and the black arrow broke the moment it was shot. Although the arrow broke, the power that it displayed was extremely terrifying. A one-use disposable item? Jian Wushuang was surprised. The arrow's power was overwhelming and it broke when it was shot. All the power was concentrated in the arrow and Emperor God Tian Shao intended to kill him with that arrow. Such terrifying power. The people who were watching in the surrounding could feel the power and their faces changed. It was too powerful. The power that was displayed by Emperor God Tian Shao and Jian Wushuang was much stronger. It was a killing arrow. Humph! Jian Wushuang humphed coldly and his eyes shined. The divine power in his body continued to flow out madly. Ancient God unique skill, 8 divine mountains. Clang, 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 clang. A total of 8 tall, golden, lofty divine mountains descended from nowhere. The 8 golden, lofty divine mountains appeared in front of Jian Wushuang and formed 8 layers of defense. It was the strongest defense unique skill of ancient God tribe. Along with the improvement of Jian Wushuang's power, the 8 golden lofty divine mountains' defense power grew tremendously strong as well. However, the 8 divine mountains might be able to block a full blow by an emperor god, but to block the God Slayer arrow that was shot to kill, they seemed to be slightly too weak. Bang, bang, bang. The black arrow brought a long extermination aura as it pierced one golden divine mountain after another. In the blink of an eye, the 10,000 zhang tall divine mountains were pierced. The black arrow continued to shoot at Jian Wushuang. King of Venomous Worms. Jian Wushuang roared. Let me take care of this. King of Venomous Worms' voice rang in Jian Wushuang's head. The muscles on Jian Wushuang's ancient god body wriggled vigorously and a huge monster suddenly appeared. Secret skill of Plenilune, 10,000 Sirai. Countless Sirai swept out and gathered together at a terrifying speed. It instantly formed a huge, towering hand. The huge hand extended slowly and greeted the God Slayer arrow that was aiming at Jian Wushuang. Both parties collided. Voila! The huge hand was breaking down quickly and the countless Sirai shattered at the power of the God Slayer arrow. In the end, the God Slayer arrow pierced the entire huge hand. However, due to the hindrance of the huge hand, the power of the God Slayer arrow was diminished greatly. Bang! God Slayed arrow finally reached its goal and hit Jian Wushuang. His divine body shook vigorously and he fell back. It took a while before he stopped. In the void, Jian Wushuang stood on his feet again. He touched his chest and he saw that there was a clear white spot on his chest. It's such a terrifying killer move, Jian Wushuang muttered. It pierced 8 divine mountains and the huge hand that King of Venomous Worms had performed via secret skill. Then, it finally hit him. In the end, his divine body was merely slightly impacted. The power of God Slayer arrow was comparable to a hit of a top Emperor God. He didn't die? Emperor God Tian Shao was shocked. God Slayer arrow was one of Soaring Heaven King Palace's trump cards. Soaring Heaven King Palace only had 3 God Slayer arrows and they used one on Jian Wushuang. The God Slayer arrow was shot out by him, an Emperor God, personally. Theoretically, it should even be able to kill an Emperor God, but Jian Wushuang had survived and his aura was still as magnificent as before. It was obvious that his injury wasn't bad. Emperor God Tian Shao, was the arrow earlier your last trump card? Jian Wushuang looked at Emperor God Tian Shao as he spoke coldly. The power of the arrow was not too shabby. But unfortunately, it can't kill me. As you have defense armor at the level of chaotic divine treasure, I can't kill you either. However, if I want to kill the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace, you can't stop me. Emperor God Tian Shao's eyes dilated in shock. That was what he was worried about the most. He had defense armor at the level of chaotic divine treasure. He wasn't afraid of Jian Wushuang. However, the other people in Soaring Heaven King Palace didn't. If Jian Wushuang intended to kill them, he couldn't stop him. Jian Wushuang, what is it that you want exactly? Emperor Tian Shao roared. What I want? Jian Wushuang chuckled coldly. I said this before. I am here to take revenge on Soaring Heaven King Palace. Only the blood of the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace can quell the anger in me. The battle with Soaring Heaven Mansion today, although I killed 3 Sir Gods, many real gods and universe gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace, it's not enough, it's far from enough. There will be plenty of time. I will stay back and have a lot of fun with you. Ah. The hearty laughter reverberated in the universe and everyone revealed a horrified expression. After he laughed, Jian Wushuang turned around. He had obviously made up his mind to leave. Watching Jian Wushuang walk away, Emperor God Tian Shao's gaze was gloomy yet helpless. He knew clearly that he couldn't make Jian Wushuang stay with his power alone. Chapter 1771 Shocking the World. At that moment, in the sea continent, the Soaring Heaven Mansion, which once possessed a lot of power that could cause many powerhouses and sects to be extremely frightened, had been reduced to a piece of ruins. A great number of bodies and a great amount of blood could be seen everywhere. Emperor God Tian Shao and his group of people were standing at the void on top of the Soaring Heaven Mansion. However, they were deathly silent and they did not say anything. As for the large number of surrounding cultivators who were observing the battle, their throats were restless and similarly, they did not dare to speak. At that moment, even more people were in shock. In the battle on that very day, Jian Wushuang's abilities had caused them to be completely stunned. By himself, he had destroyed the big protective formation of the Soaring Heaven Mansion, charged into the Soaring Heaven Mansion, killed 3 Sir Gods of the Soaring Heaven King Palace as well as many of the real gods and universe gods. In the end, he had fought with Emperor God Tian Shao who had hurried over and he was not at a disadvantage at all. Even though Emperor God Tian Shao had used his God Slayer arrow, Jian Wushuang still remained standing with pride and he swaggered off in the end. What kind of earth-shaking stunt was that? Palace Master. Sir God Qing Fu came to the side of Emperor God Tian Shao and said with a trembling body, "Are we just going to look on as Jian Wushuang leaves? What else can we do? I have already used the God Slayer arrow. However, I was able to neither kill nor injure him seriously. Even if the 3 of you and I were to team up, would we really be able to keep him here?" Emperor God Tian Shao snorted coldly. Upon hearing that, Sir God Qing Fu and the 2 top Sir Gods at the side could not help but become silent. That's right. If they did not want to look on as Jian Wushuang left, what else could they do? It should be known that Emperor God Tian Shao had already taken action personally. Moreover, he had used the God Slayer arrow. However, he was still unable to kill Jian Wushuang. Although the Soaring Heaven King Palace's base had stronger trump cards, most of them could only be unleashed in the base and there were not many of them which could be brought out. Moreover, Even if they were to use all the trump cards that they could bring out, would they really be able to kill Jian Wushuang for sure? In the battle today, the Soaring Heaven King Palace lost a great amount of abilities. Moreover, if I'm not wrong, Jian Wushuang will continue to go on a rampage in the Sea Continent, and he might even continue his massacre into the Soaring Heaven Land. By then it will be even more troublesome. Emperor God Tian Shao clenched his fists tightly and his eyes shone with a shrill light. Let's go back first. The Soaring Heaven King Palace has to think of a surefire plan to kill him. Even if we are unable to kill him, we absolutely cannot allow him to go on a rampage wantonly in the territories of the Soaring Heaven King Palace. In no time, Emperor God Tian Shao had brought the remaining experts of the Soaring Heaven King Palace with him and returned to their base in the Soaring Heaven Land. As for the large number of cultivators who were fortunate enough to observe the battle in the Soaring Heaven Mansion, they were in a huge uproar. All of them knew that after that battle, the Soaring Heaven Mansion was crippled. In the future, the Soaring Heaven King Palace might send experts over to take control. However, it would not be soon. At that moment, the most pressing matter for the Soaring Heaven King Palace was Jian Wushuang. The Sea Continent is about to change. When Jian Wushuang charged into the Soaring Heaven Mansion alone, all the powerhouses in the eternal chaotic world got the news right away. In no time, the news of the results of the battle had spread. 3 Sir Gods of the Soaring Heaven King Palace were killed. When Jian Wushuang fought with Emperor God Tian Shao head-on, he was not in a disadvantage at all, and in the end he swaggered off. At once, the Sanctuary Alliance was in an uproar and everyone was shocked. Countless people felt that it was unbelievable. How is this possible? No matter what, Jian Wushuang is still a real god. Although he is an inverse cultivator, he can't be this strong, right? A real god is actually able to fight a head-on battle with an emperor god and not be in a disadvantage? This Jian Wushuang is too nature-defying. Even real god Wu Bei, who once achieved the top of a real god, barely possessed the fighting capabilities of a top Sir God when he was in his peak. Compared to Jian Wushuang, he is extremely far away. In the whole eternal chaotic world, perhaps there is only one person who can be compared to him. Emperor Bai. Many experts had already stopped comparing Jian Wushuang to real god Wu Bei. Instead, they compared him to Emperor Bai. After all, Emperor Bai was an inverse cultivator and he had grown to become what he was from a real god. At that moment, the Sanctuary Alliance recognized him as the most powerful person. Perhaps only the fighting capabilities of Emperor Bai when he had been a real god might be stronger than that of Jian Wushuang. At the same time that everyone was exclaiming in admiration with regards to the battle in the Soaring Heaven Mansion. In the Thunderbolt Island, in a courtyard at the highest peak of the Sanctuary Mountain where many top experts of the Sanctuary Alliance lived in. Atop a single plank bridge which stretched across a brook, there was an old man who wore simple gray clothes and he was sitting down and holding a bamboo pole. As for his body, it was leaning against a wooden peg which was beside him. Although he looked like he was fishing, in actual fact, he had already closed his eyes and he was snoring softly at the same time. This gray-clothed old man had obviously fallen asleep. Moreover, he had remained in the same posture on the single-plank bridge for a total of 13,000 years. All of a sudden, a layer of ripples appeared on the seal beside the courtyard. Although the ripples dissipated quickly, the gray-clothed old man still noticed them. Even though his eyes remained closed, he could still raise his eyebrows. "East Royal, how come you're free to come here?" The gray-clothed old man's voice could be heard within the courtyard. A silver-haired, middle-aged man appeared on the single-plank bridge abruptly, and he sat down beside the gray-clothed old man right away. The middle-aged man's eyes were as vast as millions upon millions of constellations, and he said indifferently, "In the whole Sanctuary Alliance, the two of us are the only great emperors. Hence, isn't it normal for me to look for you?" Those old bastards are living such a comfortable life and they have completely left the Sanctuary Alliance, which is in a mess, to the both of us. The gray-clothed old man curled his lips. "Stop complaining. Since both of us lost the bet back then, according to what we agreed upon, both of us have to oversee the Sanctuary Alliance for 5 million years. Now, not even half of that time has passed, the middle-aged man sneered. It's all right now. Tell me your objective for coming. The gray-clothed old man's eyes were still closed. This is a piece of news that I have just obtained. Take a look. The middle-aged man passed a token over. The gray-clothed old man took the token and skimmed through it. All of a sudden, he opened his eyes, which had been closed all the while, and a pair of dark gray eyes were revealed. Jian Wushuang. As a real god, he killed 4 Sir Gods of the Soaring Heaven King Palace in succession. Moreover, when he fought with Emperor God Tianshao head-on, he was not at a disadvantage at all. The gray-clothed old man revealed a surprised expression. Even he was surprised by the piece of news. I have already confirmed the authenticity of this piece of news. It is indeed true. Moreover, Emperor God Tianshao has given his all, and he even used the God Slayer arrow in the end. However, even with the God Slayer arrow, Jian Wushuang was still not injured in the slightest. Now, the Soaring Heaven King Palace is having a huge headache with regards to Jian Wushuang. The middle-aged man laughed. The Soaring Heaven King Palace's way of doing things have always been unreasonable, and they should pay for it. However, this little kid who is called Jian Wushuang is really impressive. Even though he fought with Emperor God Tianshao as a real god, he was still not defeated. If such abilities were compared to Emperor Bai back when he was still a real god, they should not be too different, the gray-clothed old man muttered. Chapter 1772 Heaven and Earth Supremes. Of course, the gray-robed elderly was just guessing. After all, no one knew how strong Emperor Bai was when he was at real god realm. He was too ancient. Since ancient times and the first era's passing, there has been hardly anyone like this impressive young man. If he were to continue to grow, it would be totally possible for him to become the second Emperor Bai, the gray-robed elderly muttered. Then, he turned to look at the middle-aged man. East Royal, did you come to see me because of this? Yes, the middle-aged man nodded. According to the segregation of power, Jian Wushuang fits the criteria to be listed on Heaven and Earth Supremes. Heaven and Earth Supremes? The gray-robed elderly squinted his eyes and then nodded. If so, let's announce it to the public. The 2 super expert of great emperor level made a decision and immediately spread the mysterious ranking list at a terrifyingly fast speed. The announcement of the ranking list did not stir any great commotion on Thunderbolt Island because most of the experts in Sanctuary Alliance weren't qualified to get in contact with the ranking list. However, the overlords at the peak of the eternal chaotic world and the Almigthes were surprised when they received the ranking list. Heaven and Earth Supremes. Jian Wushuang is listed on Heaven and Earth Supremes. Heaven and Earth Supremes, any one of them is a super existence that shakes the universe. Only the few top Sir Gods meet the criteria to be listed on Heaven and Earth Supremes. Jian Wushuang is just a real god and he has already reached such a level? I remember when I first heard Jian Wushuang's name, it was a few tens of thousands of years ago when real god Wu Bai's cave dwelling was opened. Jian Wushuang wiped out all geniuses in the realm of universe gods and got himself 2 white blaze fruit trees. He then gained fame. The second time I heard of him, he fought with Sir God Qianlong from Soaring Heaven King Palace in the 8th lair and he injured Sir God Qianlong badly. This time, it is my 3rd time hearing his name and he is already listed on Heaven and Earth Supremes. Too fast. This Jian Wushuang has improved too quickly. It is so unbelievable. If he continues to grow at the current speed, he might become the second Emperor Bai. Countless super-existences was shocked because of the ranking list. At the same time, there were many almighties that were roaring and bellowing in anger because of the ranking list. One should know that the ranking list was a far-fetched desire of many almighties. Many almighties and ancient existences couldn't be listed but Jian Wushuang, a young man that had only cultivated for tens of thousands of years, had been listed on the list. Once listed on Heaven and Earth Supremes, one would be an authority in eternal chaotic world. Sea continent, on a nameless mountain, Jian Wushuang was sitting alone. He was recovering his wounds and divine power. During the battle with Soaring Heaven Mansion, although he killed 3 Sir Gods, many real gods and universe gods from Soaring Heaven King Place, He was injured by the attack of Godslayer arrow shot by Emperor God Tianshao. But such an injury could be recovered very soon with King of Venomous Worms. Phew. Jian Wushuang let out a murky breath and he slowly opened his eyes. At first, I thought as long as I didn't barge into Soaring Heaven King Palace's old lair in Soaring Heaven Land, I wouldn't be threatened and it would be easy to exterminate Soaring Heaven Mansion. However, I obviously belittled Soaring Heaven King Palace's power, Jian Wushuang muttered. Soaring Heaven Mansion was only Soaring Heaven King Palace's second lair and it was located on Sea Continent. One should know that the foundation of Soaring Heaven King Palace was in Soaring Heaven Land. Hence, their power in Soaring Heaven Land should be the strongest. Especially the old lair in Soaring Heaven Land was a danger spot that even top emperor gods didn't dare to wallop. Jian Wushuang had never thought of barging into the old lair of Soaring Heaven King Palace as well. However, Jian Wushuang had never expected that even though he didn't barge into the old lair of Soaring Heaven King Palace, Emperor God Tianshao alone could also injure him. The God Slayer arrow had formed a fair threat against him. Based on the foundation of Soaring Heaven King Palace, they might be able to play a scarier and more ferocious trump card than the God Slayer arrow. Of course, even if that was true, Jian Wushuang wasn't afraid. After all, he had never once given play to any of his trump cards. Star Destruction Skill, Mountain River Map, Secret Skill of Star Palace, these were all Jian Wushuang's trump cards. A single move could destroy the universe. With these trump cards on hand, Jian Wushuang had the capital to be fearless against Soaring Heaven King Palace. Just then, Jian Wushuang, well done, Hall Master Yuan sent him a message. You heard the news? Jian Wushuang immediately replied. Of course. You made a scene in Sea Continent. The entire Sanctuary Alliance, the entire eternal chaotic world are in a tumultuous hubbub. How could I not know? Hall Master Yuan chuckled and he complimented. To be frank, I thought you could kill one or two Sir Gods in Soaring Heaven King Palace and that would be impressive enough. I never expected you to barge into Soaring Heaven Mansion and killed 4 Sir God from Soaring Heaven King Palace at one goal, including Sir God Qi Xing. You and Emperor God Tianshao were well matched too. Thanks, Hall Master Yuan, you didn't message me to tell me this, right? Jian Wushuang laughed. Of course not, Hall Master Yuan became serious. Jian Wushuang, I'm going to send you a ranking list. You should take a look carefully. Ranking list? What ranking list? Jian Wushuang was confused. Heaven and Earth Supreme's ranking list. Hall Master Yuan didn't say much but sent a boundless ranking list over. Jian Wushuang received them with care. After he received all, he read through the ranking list. Jian Wushuang's eyes dilated in surprise. This is almighty ranking list? Yes and no, Hall Master Yuan answered. Jian Wushuang was shocked. Jian Wushuang, you have yet to hear about Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, right? Hall Master Yuan asked. It is my first time hearing this, Jian Wushuang nodded. That's right, Hall Master Yuan laughed as he explained. Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, you have to first understand the meaning of Heaven and Earth Supreme. Heaven and Earth Supreme is referring to super expert who can establish a great force and shake the entire eternal chaotic world. Such experts are normally emperor gods. Of course, eternal chaotic world is so huge. There's 10 sanctuaries, countless holy kingdoms, various territories, there are many almighties. There are some very amazing Sir Gods too. Even when they fight with emperor gods, they could be evenly matched or they could survive emperor gods' attack. Sir Gods like that are qualified to be Heaven and Earth Supremes as well. The Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list is announced by Sanctuary Alliance personally. They organized and made a list of Heaven and Earth Supremes that could frighten eternal chaotic world. Then they ranked them according to their power. It then formed the ranking list of the highest level. To be listed on the ranking list means that the person has already reached the top of the pyramid in eternal chaotic world. Chapter 1773 Ranking? As Jian Wushuang listened, he could not help but be visibly moved. The Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking list represented the group of top existences in the eternal chaotic world. Among them, anyone could be an overlord of the eternal chaotic world. Jian Wushuang, the battle between you and Emperor God Tian Shao has allowed you to get into the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking list as well. At the same time, ever since the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking list was released, you were also the first person who got into the ranking list as a real god. As for your ranking, you can take a good look at it yourself, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang browsed through the ranking in the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking list carefully at once. First in the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking list, Emperor Bai. With regards to the first ranking, Jian Wushuang was not surprised at all. Emperor Bai was the strongest person in the Sanctuary Alliance, and he was recognized as the number one by the whole eternal chaotic world. He was an almighty level inverse cultivator, which was a super existence who could kill great emperors easily. Next, second, Red Dragon King third, Abysmal Saint Master fourth, Ancestor Tian Shen fifth, Great Emperor Zi Su sixth, Colored Glaze Emperor 14th, Purple Moon Emperor 15th, Yen Zun from the 2nd to 15th place. All of them were Great Emperor level super experts. It should be known that the Sanctuary Alliance only had a total of 13 Great Emperors. As for the 2 additional Great Emperors, they did not join the Sanctuary Alliance. After the 15 Great Emperors, there was a large number of Emperor Gods. The Emperor God ranked 16th was called Underworld God. The Underworld God. Jian Wushuang also looked at the information regarding the Underworld God. The Underworld God had only become a peak expert 4 million years ago. To date, his training time amounted to less than 5 million years. 5 million years might seem very long to Jian Wushuang. However, to many of the Emperor God Almighties, 5 million years was considered too short. In the eternal chaotic world, most of the Almighties had lived for over 10 million years, while some of them had lived for tens of millions of years or even hundreds of millions of years. For example, about the oldest person, Emperor Bai, in the Sanctuary Alliance, it was said that he was a remnant of the First Era. Hence, he had definitely lived for an extremely long period of time already. As for the Underworld God, he was able to make it into the 16th position on the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking list and become the number 1 among the Emperor Gods after training for less than 5 million years. With that, he was only inferior to the 15 Great Emperors, and one could imagine how powerful and talented he was. Moreover, previously, the Sanctuary Alliance had always thought that he was an expert who was the closest to, and also had the highest hopes of, becoming a new Great Emperor. As for his accomplishments, they were extremely brilliant as well. He had once competed against 4 top Emperor Gods by himself. In the end, he had killed 2 of them and seriously injured the remaining 2 people. 11 Emperor Gods had once teamed up to deploy a shocking killing formation to besiege him. In the end, he had torn the killing formation apart and killed all of them. It was also rumored that the Underworld God had fought with a great emperor before. Moreover, he had lasted for a very long period of time against the great emperor. With such brilliant accomplishments, even Jian Wushuang clicked his tongue in admiration when he saw it. The Underworld God could indeed be recognized as the number 1 among the Emperor Gods. Even with 4 top Emperor Gods teaming up, they were still defeated by him easily. If I were to come across him, I would probably have no way of resisting, Jian Wushuang gasped. However, it was fortunate that the Underworld God was someone from the Sanctuary Alliance and he was not connected to the lineage of Star in any way. Hence, he would absolutely not make trouble for Jian Wushuang for no reason. After that, Jian Wushuang continued to look at the rankings. For the top Emperor Gods who were behind the Underworld God, all of them had shocking abilities. However, compared to the Underworld God, their accomplishments were obviously lacking. In no time, Jian Wushuang saw a name. 22nd in the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking list, Emperor God Tianling. Damn it. The strongest person in the Soaring Heaven King Palace actually has such a high ranking in the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking list? Jian Wushuang exclaimed with admiration. The Soaring Heaven King Palace had a total of 2 founders who were both Emperor Gods. Among their 2 Emperor Gods, Emperor God Tian Shao oversaw the Soaring Heaven land. As for Emperor God Tianling, he traveled in the second lair throughout the year. Although the both of them had founded the Soaring Heaven King Palace together, in terms of abilities, Emperor God Tianling was a lot more powerful than Emperor God Tianxiao. 22nd in the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking List. Putting the 15 great emperors aside, Emperor God Tianling could be said to be ranked 7th out of the large number of emperor gods in the eternal chaotic world. This was already an extremely high ranking. Not only did this mean that he stood at the very top of the emperor gods, this also meant that he could suppress any normal top emperor gods if he were to encounter them. For example, Emperor God Tianling could probably kill emperor gods who were of a similar level to Emperor God Shuegu. If this Emperor God Tianling were to come out of the second lair and hunt me down, he would definitely be a threat to me. However, I have many trump cards with me. If I were to really go all out, he might not be able to do anything against me, Jian Wushuang murmured. He was extremely confident in the great number of trump cards he possessed. Jian Wushuang continued to look at the rankings further back. When he reached the 31st position of the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking List, his eyes paused again. At the same time, he revealed a smile. The person in the 31st position was the most important person in the lineage of Star, the Star Palace Master. Although the Palace Master's abilities are unable to match the abilities of Emperor God Tianling, he is not too far away from him. Moreover, the Palace Master's trump card is even more powerful, Jian Wushuang laughed. The information on the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking List also mentioned about the Star Palace Master, strongest trump card, the secret skill of Star Palace. As soon as it was unleashed, he could kill many emperor gods. Even if it were the underworld god who was ranked first among the emperor gods, for a short amount of time, he could only take evasive measures. The Palace Master has also cultivated the second volume of the secret skill of 7-star, secret skill of Star Palace. As soon as he unleashes it, his power will rise by 100 times. Within a breath's time, the fighting capabilities that he can unleash will indeed rival that of a normal great emperor, Jian Wushuang said. Jian Wushuang continued looking at the rankings. When he saw the 48th position, his expression changed abruptly. The person in the 48th position of the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking List was Emperor God Shuegu. Emperor God Shuegu is indeed very powerful, and he is already extremely close to the top of an emperor god. Hence, it is normal for him to be ranked 48th. The thing is, he is already dead? Jian Wushuang had a puzzled expression. He knew that Emperor God Shuegu had died in the Buddhist Demon Sea. However, only him as well as a few people in the lineage of Star knew about this. Moreover, the lineage of Star did not make this piece of news public. As such, the Sanctuary Alliance still had no idea that Emperor God Shuegu had already died. Therefore, they still included his name on the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking List. Emperor God Shuegu was ranked 48th. As for Emperor God Tianxiao, he was ranked 56th as his abilities were weaker than those of Emperor God Shuegu. When I fought with Emperor God Tianxiao head-on, I was never at a disadvantage. As such, I was able to get onto the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking List. Since Emperor God Tianxiao is ranked 56th, my ranking should be extremely close to his, Jian Wushuang muttered. As expected, Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened up. He had already seen his own name. 61st in the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking List, Jian Wushuang, a real god inverse cultivator. Chapter 1774 Never-Ending Massacre. They even gave a clear indication of my realm and my identity as an inverse cultivator, Jian Wushuang smiled. As for his battle achievements, they didn't even bring up the incident where he had severely injured Sir God Qianlong in the 8th lair, only his battle achievement on Sea Continent. Head killed Sir God Qi Xing with one palm. Barged into Soaring Heaven Mansion alone. Broke the formation of everlasting green formed by 4 Sir Gods and killed 3 of them. At the end, he was well matched with Sir God Tianxiao. Such a battle achievement is more than enough to be listed on Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking List. However, to be in the 61st place, I'm afraid it isn't convincing enough. Jian Wushuang rubbed his nose. He had fought with Sir God Tianxiao. Although the fight was too close to call, It was because it was too close to call that it was hard to determine. After all, those who didn't watch the battle, how would they know if Sir God Tian Shao gave his all? And how would they know if Jian Wushuang was severely injured in the battle? In short, it was rather unconvincing to be in the 61st place with such a battle achievement. Who cares? If there was anyone who is unhappy with it, I'll fight with them until they are convinced, Jian Wushuang smiled. Those listed further down the list were ordinary emperor gods and some top Sir gods who could be evenly matched with emperor gods. The list ended at the 132nd place. Among the 132 heaven and earth supremes, there were 15 great emperor and 81 emperor gods, and the rest were top Sir gods. It should be all the higher-ups in eternal chaotic world. Even if there were some hidden experts, there shouldn't be a lot of them. And of course, the experts under the command of a hidden dark force like Holocaust Sect and Acheron Palace wouldn't be included in heaven and earth supreme ranking list. After Jian Wushuang skimmed through the ranking list, he let out a heavy sigh. I never expected that there would be so many experts in eternal chaotic world. There were 15 great emperors and 81 emperor gods, Jian Wushuang muttered, although my fighting power enabled me to be listed on heaven and earth supreme ranking list, I was merely in the 61st place. Although I am at the peak of the pyramid in eternal chaotic world, I am not the strongest. Only if I continuously break through and step foot on the 7th step of inverse cultivation as soon as possible, then I can become an almighty. By then, I should be able to compare favorably with the great emperor. By then, I will have the capital to run wild in eternal chaotic world. As of now, I am far from that. Then, Jian Wushuang stood up as he looked into the distance. At the end of his view, there was a huge mountain. The mountain had an Ariadiva crystal vein which was extremely rare. The crystal vein had been conquered by Soaring Heaven King Palace. They had more than 20 real gods, including 3 chaotic real gods who attended to garrison duty all year round. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang plunged and he arrived in the void above the mountain after a short while. The moment he appeared, rumble. An enormous amount of divine might spread across like the anger of the universe. Divine might and divine power compensated one another. Jian Wushuang's divine power was parallel to an emperor god's. Hence, the divine might was naturally at the emperor god level. As the terrifying divine might spread across the mountain, the cultivators in the mountains suddenly shivered in fear under the divine might. Within the range of my soul power, there are a total of 23 real gods. These real gods are all from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace have to die. Jian Wushuang harbored intense murderous intention and he immediately started a massacre. That day, Jian Wushuang came to the mountain and killed the 23 real gods of Soaring Heaven King Palace who guard the mountain in less than 10 breaths' time. He killed all of them without leaving anyone alive. Half a month later, Jian Wushuang appeared in a palace branch of Soaring Heaven King Palace on Sea Continent. Before countless cultivators' gazes, Jian Wushuang broke the palace branch into pieces with one palm. At the same time, he crushed the palace branch into dust. There were many experts in the palace branch, including 10 real gods. All of them died. Only the disciples who were weaker escaped by luck. 3 months later, on a huge island that was sealed off from the outside world, Jian Wushuang was in his crimson robe and he harbored boundless murderous intention. He took a stride forward and he wielded his sword. He cut the island into 2, then he swung his sword across. He killed all the real gods on the island. 6 months later, 3 real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace returned to Soaring Heaven Land from other places. Before they arrived in Soaring Heaven King Palace, they met a swordsman in a crimson robe. The swordsman in a crimson robe only asked if the 3 of them were from Soaring Heaven King Palace. The 3 of them answered yes, then the swordsman in crimson robe pointed and killed the 3 real gods instantly. 1 year later. Massacre. A never-ending bloodbath. Jian Wushuang had turned into death himself. He first started in Sea Continent, then to Soaring Heaven Land that Soaring Heaven King Palace ruled over the years. He massacred the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace all over. Whenever Jian Wushuang launched an attack, it would be experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace that were the level of real gods or higher. they stood almost no chance of escape. As for universe gods, those who were weak could escape, but those universe gods who were stronger would be killed by Jian Wushuang mercilessly. Regardless of sea continent or soaring heaven land, the territories that Soaring Heaven King Palace conquered were in a bloodbath carried out by Jian Wushuang. According to incomplete statistics, in the 10 years, the number of real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace that were killed by Jian Wushuang was more than several hundreds. Among, there were over 30 eternal real gods and more than a dozen chaotic real gods. It had only been 10 years. The terrifying massacre shook the two pieces of land and shook the entire Sanctuary Alliance. It also shocked countless cultivators in Eternal Chaotic World. Death, Demon, Madman, all the titles fell upon Jian Wushuang. At first, they were in awe of Jian Wushuang's power. But then, the experts were terrified by Jian Wushuang's brutality and massacre skills. Luckily, Jian Wushuang was only aiming at Soaring Heaven King Palace. Hence, not everyone was in danger. In the 10 years, Soaring Heaven King Palace wasn't only in defense, they tried many ways, and even Emperor God Tian Shao got involved personally. However, Jian Wushuang wasn't weaker than Emperor God Tian Shao. Jian Wushuang wanted to kill, and Emperor God Tian Shao couldn't do anything about it. He also intended to use his trump cards to kill Jian Wushuang. However, the trump cards that he could perform couldn't kill Jian Wushuang, and the stronger ones were required to be performed within the lair of Soaring Heaven King Palace. But Jian Wushuang wasn't stupid, and he wouldn't barge into the lair of Soaring Heaven King Palace hastily. This also led to Jian Wushuang's never-ending massacre. However, the higher-ups in Soaring Heaven King Palace could only watch. Such a massacre shocked everyone. Chapter 1775 Recall. This Jian Wushuang, not only is he extremely talented, he killed with great resolve, and he is no different from old bastards like us who have lived for many years. The path of the strong has always been full of ups and downs, and every one of them was born from endless massacres. Now, the Soaring Heaven King Palace has become Jian Wushuang's stepping stone. I reckon that Jian Wushuang wants to use the Soaring Heaven King Palace to warn everyone of the consequences of provoking him. This time around, the Soaring Heaven King Palace has provoked a malignant star, and it will be really miserable for them. The Soaring Heaven King Palace's way of doing things has always been unreasonable. If not for them having such great backgrounds, they would have been destroyed a long time ago. This time around, they have finally suffered losses from someone who they thought was weak. Jian Wushuang has already been massacring to his heart's content for 10 years. The Soaring Heaven King Palace's Emperor God Tian Shao has taken action many times. However, he was unable to do anything against him. If Jian Wushuang were to continue his massacre, no matter how many experts the Soaring Heaven King Palace had, the Soaring Heaven King Palace would run out of them eventually. I wonder what the Soaring Heaven King Palace will do next? Could it be that they would get Emperor God Tianling, who has always been traveling in the second lair, to return personally? Apart from that, there seems to be no other way. In the whole Sanctuary Alliance, countless experts were having a discussion enthusiastically. They were all discussing Jian Wushuang as well as the clash between Jian Wushuang and the Soaring Heaven King Palace. The past 10 years of massacre had allowed everyone to really know what kind of person Jian Wushuang was. As such, innumerable experts started to respect him. At the same time that they were shocked and exclaiming with admiration, all of them were guessing the next move of the Soaring Heaven King Palace. In a lofty palace in the Soaring Heaven King Palace, Emperor God Tian Shao was sitting down on a throne which was 3 meters tall. Below him was a large number of high-level experts, which included the few Sir Gods of the Soaring Heaven King Palace. Has the large number of real gods of the Soaring Heaven King Palace been recalled? Emperor God Tian God was looking down at one of the people below him. This person was Sir God Qing Fu. Palace Master, 99% of the Soaring Heaven King Palace's real gods who were in the Soaring Heaven Land and Sea Continent have already returned. Only a few real gods are still on their way back, Sir God Qing Fu said respectfully. However, he was still filled with dissatisfaction. Palace Master, Do we really have to recall all the real gods back to our base just because of this Jian Wushuang? Even though things have already reached this stage, you are still underestimating him? Emperor God Tianshao gave a cold snort. Don't forget. Jian Wushuang has now gotten into the Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, and he is already one of the Heaven and Earth Supremes of the eternal chaotic world. Even if I were to take action, I would be unable to do anything against him. Currently, he has gone on a crazy killing spree in the soaring heaven land and sea continent. If I were to not call back all those real gods, wouldn't that mean I am waiting for all of them to be killed by Jian Wushuang? As soon as Emperor God Tianshao's words left his mouth, the whole hall went silent immediately. At the start, the soaring Heaven King Palace did not care about Jian Wushuang at all, and they had thought that with their abilities, killing Jian Wushuang would be the same as stepping on an ant and killing it. As for Jian Wushuang provoking the soaring Heaven King Palace, it was just the weak attacking the strong. However, no one had expected Jian Wushuang's abilities to rise to such an extent in such a short period of time. Even with Emperor God Tianshao taking action personally, he was still unable to do anything against him. To date, Jian Wushuang had gotten into the Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, and he was already standing at the very top of the pyramid in the eternal chaotic world. No one dared to disregard such an expert. Even though that's the case, we are merely tackling the problem on the surface by recalling all the real gods. After all, the large number of experts of the soaring Heaven King Palace cannot possibly hide in the base all the time and not go out, right? Sir God Qing Fu said with a deep voice, "We have to think of a way to kill Jian Wushuang. With this, we will be able to avoid any trouble in the future." Everyone around him nodded their heads in succession. However, they knew that it would not be easy to kill Jian Wushuang. "Palace Master, why not get Lord Tianling to take action?" Sir God Qing Fu only managed to say a few words. "Big Brother cannot take action temporarily." Emperor God Tianshao waved his hands. "Not long ago, Big Brother sent me a message and told me that he had found an opportunity in the second layer. This opportunity was exceptional, and if he were to be able to obtain it, his abilities would skyrocket. Although he would not be able to become a great emperor, he would be able to reach a level similar to that of the underworld god." The underworld god? The few Sir Gods below were all shocked. The underworld god, the person recognized as the number one among the emperor gods by the eternal chaotic world. He was a super existence who could kill top emperor gods easily. Moreover, his position among the emperor gods was just like the position of emperor by among the great emperors. If Emperor God Tianling were to be able to reach a level similar to that of the underworld god, it would be a very delightful thing to the soaring Heaven King Palace. Big Brother has been thinking of ways to obtain that opportunity. Now, he is at the critical moment, so how can he be interrupted by Jian Wushuang like this? Emperor God Tianshao said, "Since Lord Tianling is unable to take action, what about the high-level experts in the Sanctuary Alliance? After all, our soaring Heaven King Palace is a member of the Sanctuary Alliance. If we were to get them to come..." Sir God Qing Fu said, "Forget about the Sanctuary Alliance." Emperor God Tianling shook his head again. "This Jian Wushuang is different from the others. He is an inverse cultivator who is extremely talented with unlimited potential. If he were to continue growing, there is even the hope of him achieving a level similar to that of Emperor Bai in the future. At the least, he will become a new great emperor. An expert like him with such potential is valued highly by the Sanctuary Alliance. If there is no need to, the old bastards in the Sanctuary Alliance will definitely not take action against Jian Wushuang. For example, although he is currently massacring real gods wantonly, he himself is still a real god. A real god massacring real gods. Moreover, he is only massacring the real gods of the soaring Heaven King Palace. Furthermore, the grudge acts as an appropriate reason for him to do so. As such, no matter how many real god he kills, the high-level experts in the Sanctuary Alliance will naturally not care about it. Moreover, there is another point. This Jian Wushuang has always been acting alone. From start to finish, the lineage of star behind him has never shown themselves. Emperor God Tianshao's expression turned gloomy. Jian Wushuang alone was already very difficult to deal with. According to logic, if there were the lineage of star on top of that, there would be even more pressure on the soaring Heaven King Palace. However, in actual fact, that was not the case. After all, the lineage of star was a big powerhouse and there were many real God and universe God disciples under them. If the lineage of star were to be involved, they could absolutely give them a taste of their own medicine. For example, if Emperor God Tian Shao were to charge into the Star Land and massacre the real gods of the lineage of star wantonly, the lineage of star might not be able to stop him. With that, there would be a balance and the actions of both of them would be restricted. As such, Jian Wushuang would definitely not dare to continue his massacre. However, at that time, Jian Wushuang had always been acting alone and the lineage of star had never shown themselves before. Hence, the clash this time around was Jian Wushuang's own personal matter and it was unrelated to the lineage of star. Under such circumstances, if the soaring Heaven King Palace were to fight all the way to the lineage of star, they would start a great battle right away. Moreover, for this great battle, the soaring Heaven King Palace would be in the wrong and probably none of the higher-ups of the Sanctuary Alliance would stand on their side. Chapter 1776, Appointment. If so, Soaring Heaven King Palace can't do anything about Jian Wushuang? Everyone in Soaring Heaven King Palace looked distressed. If we want to kill him, it is impossible as of now. But it isn't difficult if we only want Jian Wushuang to retreat. Emperor God Tian Shao squinted his eyes. Send down my command. For the rest of the time, we of Soaring Heaven King Palace shall stay put in the old lair. Without my permission, no one gets to leave. Yes, the underlings immediately took the order. In Soaring Heaven Land, Jian Wushuang's massacre continued. However, as Soaring Heaven King Palace summoned all their experts back, it was very difficult for Jian Wushuang to find a target. However, Soaring Heaven King Palace's action shook Sanctuary Alliance. Soaring Heaven King Palace summoned all their experts back to Soaring Heaven Land and Sea Continent? Does Soaring Heaven King Palace intend to ostrich and have all the experts under their command hide in their old lair? Impossible. Soaring Heaven King Palace has always been arrogant. Their foundation and power is extraordinary. With Jian Wushuang alone, it will be impossible for him to force Soaring Heaven King Palace into such a position. If I'm not mistaken, Soaring Heaven King Palace definitely has their way to deal with Jian Wushuang. We shall see. The experts from various forces watched quietly. The time flew past. 1 month, 2 months, half a year. Soaring Heaven King Palace was extremely peaceful and there were no experts above real god level who left the old lair. The experts from all forces in Sanctuary Alliance was confused. Soaring Heaven King Palace really can't do anything about Jian Wushuang and they decided to be an ostrich? Just as most experts thought, Soaring Heaven King Palace finally made a move. Soaring Heaven King Palace spread news that Emperor God Tian Shao would throw a banquet in Clear Sky City on Soaring Heaven Land in 1 month's time to see Jian Wushuang personally. The moment the news spread, everyone was shocked. Some said that Soaring Heaven King Palace meant that they had already set up a trap to kill Jian Wushuang and they were only waiting for his arrival. Some even said that Soaring Heaven King Palace couldn't do anything about Jian Wushuang. Hence, they had no choice but to talk to Jian Wushuang. In other words, Soaring Heaven King Palace yielded to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, who was the main character of the incident, naturally received the news at the first instant. To meet me? Jian Wushuang rubbed his nose and there was a malicious smile. Jian Wushuang, Soaring Heaven King Palace has always been barbaric. Ever since Emperor God Tianling and Emperor God Tian Shao established Soaring Heaven King Palace, they have only bowed to great emperors or experts like Underworld God. But now, although you have made Soaring Heaven King Palace suffered a great loss, the 2 greatest authorities, especially Emperor God Tianling, are still alive. They definitely won't yield to you so easily. Hence, this meetup might be a trap, Hallmaster Yuan said. Trap? Jian Wushuang thought for a while and asked, Hallmaster Yuan, is there any news about Emperor God Tianling's return? No. I have someone to guard at the second lair. I am sure that Emperor God Tianling is still in the second lair, Hallmaster Yuan answered. How about the other experts on Heaven and Earth's supreme ranking list? Jian Wushuang asked. It's strange. The experts of Heaven and Earth's supreme ranking list, besides the Sir God who was further back on the list that has always stayed in Soaring Heaven Land, there aren't any other experts who have returned to Soaring Heaven Land, Hall Master Yuan said. When Jian Wushuang and Soaring Heaven King Palace had fought head-on, Hall Master Yuan utilized Lineage of Star and used the resources in Sanctuary Alliance to keep watch of experts who could threaten Jian Wushuang. However, he didn't receive any news about any experts who went to Soaring Heaven Land. Emperor God Tianling didn't return, nor did the experts on the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking list come back. How can Soaring Heaven King Palace kill me? Could it be with other trump cards? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. No way. If Soaring Heaven King Palace could really play any trump cards that could threaten me, they would have played them long ago. They definitely wouldn't wait until now. What could it be? Even Jian Wushuang had no idea what Soaring Heaven King Palace's intention was. Regardless of Soaring Heaven King Palace's intention, it's best that you don't go for the meetup, Hall Master Yuan advised. No, Soaring Heaven King Palace invited me sincerely, how can I not go? No matter what their plot is, even if there is a trap, Jian Wushuang, will deal with it. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. One should know that, even when he was the target of a scheme by Acheron Palace back in Buddhist Demon Sea, he made a narrow escape and survived. His power increased tremendously too. If Acheron Palace was capable of that, Jian Wushuang didn't think Soaring Heaven King Palace could be more clever than Acheron Palace. Plus, Jian Wushuang was confident in his trump cards too. If you insist to go, go ahead. But just in case, I will report this to Palace Master and have Palace Master make a trip to Soaring Heaven Land. If there were to be any unexpected events, Soaring Heaven King Palace wouldn't dare to attack hastily if Palace Master were to be there, Hall Master Yuan said. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded and made a decision. 1 month later, it was clear and fresh. On Soaring Heaven Land, in Clear Sky City, countless cultivators were gathered. The cultivators were naturally there to watch Jian Wushuang and Soaring Heaven King Palace's meetup. In the void above Clear Sky City, there was a pedestal floating in the air quietly. On the pedestal, there were 2 long, narrow tables. In front of one of the tables, a man in a golden robe sat with his eyes closed. The man in the golden robe was Emperor God Tian Shao's original body. The cultivators gathered in Clear Sky City saw Emperor God Tian Shao and they looked at him in awe. Emperor God Tian Shao is one of the founders of Soaring Heaven King Palace. Such a legendary figure, I can finally see him with my own eyes. I can die with no regrets now. Although Emperor God Tian Shao was amazing, I admire Jian Wushuang more. He is only in the realm of real God and he can shake Soaring Heaven King Palace. It is said that Emperor God Tian Shao could only be evenly matched with him. Countless cultivators were talking among themselves. Just then, Emperor God Tian Shao, I'm sorry to make you wait, there was a burst of hearty laughter that reverberated in the universe. Then, there was a figure in a crimson robe that appeared and walked over from the void far away. He was walking slowly, but every step he took brought about a mysterious, boundless divine might that was not second to Emperor God Tian Shao. It spread along his footsteps. Countless cultivators lifted their heads simultaneously. Looking at the incomer, their eyes were filled with admiration and passion. It took a while until the figure in crimson reached the pedestal and came before Emperor God Tian Shao. Emperor God Tian Shao, who had been sitting there with his eyes closed, finally opened his eyes. He looked at Jian Wushuang solemnly and waved his hand. Take a seat. Jian Wushuang then sat down by the side of the empty long, narrow table in front of him. Chapter 1777. Unable to do anything as Jian Wushuang took his seat, the huge Clear Sky City quietened down completely. Everyone had raised their heads and they were looking at the stage on top. Only 2 people remained in their lines of vision. These 2 people were naturally Jian Wushuang and Emperor God Tian Shao. 2 super experts who were in the Heaven and Earth Supreme Ranking list, 2 super existences who could frighten the eternal chaotic world. Apart from the 2 of them, the small number of Sir Gods who had come with the soaring Heaven King Palace did not have the right to stand on that stage. Atop the stage, Jian Wushuang and Emperor God Tian Shao were 100 meters apart from each other, their eyes looking at one another and glowing with a shrill light. The space had frozen completely a long time ago. After a long time, Emperor God Tian Shao was the first to speak. Jian Wushuang, even I have no choice but to admire you. You actually dared to come for this appointment. Aren't you scared that I would set a trap here and besiege you? No matter what traps and trump cards your soaring Heaven King Palace has, go ahead and bring all of them out. No matter what they are, I, Jian Wushuang, will wipe them out by myself. Jian Wushuang said coldly. Is that so? Murderous intent shone in Emperor God Tian Shao. At that moment, he wanted to take action right away and combine his attacks with some of the techniques that he had prepared in their current location previously to kill Jian Wushuang on the spot. If I were to take action, there would only be a 30% chance of me getting my way. Emperor God Tian Shao was hesitating. However, his expression changed abruptly. The old monster of the Star Palace? Emperor God Tian Shao's eyes shrank violently. He had already noticed the Star Palace Master who was in the void nearby. However, the Star Palace Master did not show himself. Seems like you have made some preparations as well, Emperor God Tian Shao laughed coldly. He knew that since the Star Palace Master was nearby, it would be impossible for him to take action and kill Jian Wushuang straight away. Firstly, even if he were to go all out, he was only 30% sure that he could do it, and 30% was not high. Moreover, even if his luck were good and he was able to kill Jian Wushuang, at the critical moment, the Star Palace Master would probably not stand by and look on. However, as long as Jian Wushuang was not in a situation where he would die, the Star Palace Master would probably not take action at all. Emperor God Tian Shao, tell me bluntly. Why did you get me to come here personally? Jian Wushuang laughed coldly. It's simple. I want you to leave the soaring heaven land and the sea continent, Emperor God Tian Shao said. Huh? My massacre has only just begun and you want me to leave now? On what grounds? Jian Wushuang sneered. With regards to the soaring Heaven King Palace which had attempted to kill him many times, Jian Wushuang would absolutely not show them any mercy. At that moment, although he had killed quite a number of experts in the soaring Heaven King Palace and he had forced the experts of the soaring Heaven King Palace to hole up in their base, it was still not enough. It was far from enough. His flames of fury were not something that could completely subside by just killing a number of Sir Gods and some real gods. He wanted to fight the soaring Heaven King Palace until they were struck with fear and fight them until they knelt down on the ground to beg for forgiveness. If he had the ability to do so, he even wanted to eliminate the soaring Heaven King Palace completely. At that moment, Emperor God Tian Shao wanted to stop him with just his words alone. Would that be possible? Jian Wushuang, your techniques are indeed impressive. Even if the soaring Heaven King Palace wanted to kill you, it would be absolutely difficult for us to do so. However, this does not mean that the soaring Heaven King Palace will really be afraid of you. The background of the soaring Heaven King Palace is not something that you can imagine. Emperor God Tian Shao's voice was ice cold. With a flip of his palm, he took out a token. Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted. Jian Wushuang, didn't you ask me on what grounds? Let me tell you that it's this token in my hand. Emperor God Tian Shao laughed coldly. After that, he exerted force in his palm and crushed the token right away. The moment the token was crushed, there was no frightening power that was expected to burst forth. It was obvious that the token did not contain any technique that could kill Jian Wushuang. However, after the token was destroyed, an aura spread slowly. The aura was completely different from that of a Sir God or an Emperor God. It was a supreme aura which could stand at the top of the eternal chaotic world. The aura only belonged to one kind of realm and it was called Great Emperor. The aura of a Great Emperor expert? Jian Wushuang's expression changed abruptly. Under his attention, a huge, cold, and arrogant figure took shape slowly. She was more than 5 meters tall and curvaceous. Moreover, she had a beautiful face and possessed indescribable elegance and nobility. As soon as she appeared in the void, her eyes, which could cause serious injuries to everything by looking down at them, swept over the area. Everyone, including the Star Palace Master as well as Emperor God Tian Shao, who her eyes swept past, could not help but lower their heads. Even if it were Jian Wushuang, no matter how unwilling he was, he could only lower his head at that moment. I am Tian Shao. Greetings to Colored Glaze Emperor. Emperor God Tian Shao was the first person to bow down and greet the elegant woman. Greetings to Colored Glaze Emperor. Similarly, many experts of the Soaring Heaven King Palace greeted her respectfully. Jian Wushuang's expression was a bit ugly. However, he still bowed to her respectfully. There was no choice. The abilities of a great emperor-level supreme existence were right there. Not mentioning Jian Wushuang, even if the underworld god who was the number one among the emperor gods was present, he would need to greet her respectfully. You are Jian Wushuang? The colored glaze emperor's eyes was not filled with any feeling at all. She was looking down at Jian Wushuang as though she was looking down at an ant. That's right, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. The Soaring Heaven King Palace once forced you into a hopeless situation. However, you have already killed 4 Sir Gods as well as many real gods of the Soaring Heaven King Palace. Hence, the grudge is resolved. From today, unless the Soaring Heaven King Palace provokes you again, you shall not kill any experts of the Soaring Heaven King Palace within the Colored Glaze Sanctuary. If you go against this, you'll die. An ice-cold voice reverberated across the universe. Every word contained an infinite amount of god power, and so much pressure was exerted on everyone that they were suffocating. After her words left her mouth, the Colored Glaze Emperor's figure dissipated slowly and completely turned into nothingness in the end. It was not until the Colored Glaze Emperor's shadow dissipated that the large number of cultivators present heaved a long sigh of relief. Jian Wushuang got up. As he looked in the direction that the Colored Glaze Emperor had left in, his expression turned gloomy. Ha! Jian Wushuang, did you hear the Colored Glaze Emperor's words clearly? Emperor God Tian Shao's laughter, filled with ridicule, could be heard. His eyes then looked at Jian Wushuang with disdain. I have said before that the background of the Soaring Heaven King Palace is not as simple as you think. The Soaring Heaven King Palace has been dominating the Colored Glaze Sanctuary for many years. Moreover, we have occupied 2 pieces of land. For us to be able to do this, how would we not be related to the Colored Glaze Emperor at all? Jian Wushuang had an ugly expression. He had not expected the Soaring Heaven King Palace to make such a move. Since a great emperor had come personally, even if it were him, he would be worried about it. Jian Wushuang. Emperor God Tian Shao's voice could be heard again. The Colored Glaze Emperor's orders are clear. If you dare to continue killing the experts of the Soaring Heaven King Palace in the Colored Glaze Sanctuary, even without the Soaring Heaven King Palace taking action, the Colored Glaze Emperor will definitely take action personally to kill you. Jian Wushuang, although you are strong, won't it still be easy for a great emperor to kill you? Now, it's time for you to make a decision. Will you fight or will you retreat? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.